got into you?
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
Fuller.
Yeah.
Needed F-150 for Smith build.
Got it.
Yesterday.
I know.
Don't forget my BMW.
Gotcha. Check this out. All the major online automotive sites in one place. BMW, done. F-150, done.
How's he do it?
I can search nationwide, even those classified sites. Auto Tempest, all the cars, one search. That's how I do it.
What got into you?
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
The continuation of the playoff chase makes its turn south to a venue poised as an ominous lady in the heart of South Carolina, looking for a night's dance. Tonight, we welcome you to the 12th race of the 2024 Sunoco Cup Series season, live from the virtual Darlington Raceway and our coverage on VSPEED. The warmest welcome from us to you on this mid-August Sunday, where the regular season temps jump to an all-time high. We're alongside Bradley Cooper, our producer and colleague in the booth. I'm Kenneth Bueno. It's safe to say, Bradley, it's been quite a lengthy vacation since our last trip at Dover Motor Speedway back in late July, but we're back in action, and for the first time this year, we will have races in consecutive back-to-back weeks. So not only do the drivers have to get executed very quickly with the races that are coming forward in this 2024 season, but that push for the playoffs starting to get a little more drastic as we move forward.
Yeah, we're sitting here with maybe one or two more opportunities. This is going to be the moment where if you aren't into that final split of 16, well, if you don't get it here, one of the toughest tracks we're going to be at, there's always Daytona. You can go roll the dice there, but this is down to crunch time. 13 races before that, last 7, 8 races in the playoffs are always like that. We saw it in the real life Cup Series where Austin Dillon did whatever he could to try to get that victory, and unfortunately they take that away from him. But that's what I look forward to seeing here in Sunoco, is that maybe we're going to see some guys get ultra dramatic or just do something they've never done before.
We're going to see some late season heaves, that's for sure, to make the playoffs. We'll discuss the context of that in just several moments. But really, in the last stretch to the regular season finale at Daytona that we'll have just next Sunday, you have an all-around test. Dover, several weeks ago, that was a concrete mile short track, 1 mile short track over in Dover, Delaware. Tonight, you've got the egg-shaped Darlington Raceway, which is always so unique in its own way. And then, of course, that big old super speedway at Daytona International Speedway. How big of a race that might be for deciding those 16 that'll call themselves eligible for a Sunoco Cup Series championship this year. And while you do see the same names at the top of the table after Dover, Bradley, look at who's on that cut line. Jesse Whittington, who had no concerns just a year ago after having a win to lock him into that postseason. Tonight, he faces relegation outside of playoff territory. He's only 4 points ahead of fellow driver Richard Swabley for that last coveted spot in the playoffs. And you look at 16th through 19th with Chris Shoemaker back there in 19th place. All of that, Bradley separated by just 10 points.
Yeah, it's really tight back here, and it'll continue to stay that way, especially after tonight. But you've got a few names back there like Zach Wilson, who, you know, he secured his spot, but he kind of went into relaxation mode and maybe hasn't been performing as up to snuff as he has previously. This first 5 races were really good for Zach. And then look at all the drivers that are up here in the top 16 that had long top 10 streaks, and then the season just kind of fell apart. And then you have like Lawson Peel, who was really deep in this field and then races his way up there. Steve Stempien, who had the injury, he's back up to 11th. He was as low as 30th, I believe, in the points at one point here in the season. So there was a lot to do here. And with only 2 races left, you wouldn't think it could change much, but it only takes 1.
And it only takes 1 with several stages in the midst as well. Lots of points being awarded. That's why you're seeing guys like Austin Reedy, even despite not having a race win this season, still at the top of the board. That'll be a conversation topic all night long going into tonight and, of course, next week's race at Daytona International Speedway, because, you know, the time is running out and the amount of points left to give are oh so generous in itself, but you know, they're running slim as we move forward into this regular season. Here we are at Darlington Raceway. This is a track that we usually visit often here in the Sunoco Cup Series, but one thing, Bradley, about this 1.366 mile egg-shaped oval in the heart of South Carolina is that we usually only see it once a season, so drivers don't get acclimated to it all too well, but it is one of the more difficult tracks to drive, hence its nickname, Too Tough to Tame.
Yes, this track has been in the staple of unique racetracks. Just on the distance, you see a lot of 1.5 or 2.0, 2.5, but this one is just a weird number all the way around. And as far as the shape of this track, you can kind of see it if we go on some of the B-roll or from the blimp, but there's a minnow pond that was built well before this racetrack that the farmer didn't want disturbed, and that's why they had to shorten the length of the entry and exit of turn 4, because they didn't want to disrupt that farmer's pond. It created one of the most unique scenarios for that last lap, and when you're coming off of turn 4, you have to kind of get on the throttle a little bit later. It's a little bit narrower on the exit, but this racetrack in itself is unique because the banking is only about 40 feet wide. So the steepest part of the racetrack is right up next to the wall. And unfortunately, that means that it's very difficult to pass here. You've seen guys get into it, Darlington Stripe, as they call it. It's very easy to end up hitting the exit on turn 2. You'll see that all night tonight.
You're looking at a track width that's about in the racing line, 2.5 cars long. So you're 2.5 cars wide in its lane. So you won't see a lot of 3 wide action, and you'll barely see even 2 wide action. You have to be very selective about what you do, placing your race car in the right place. So look at our race analysis before we jump into tonight's race from the virtual Darlington Raceway. We go 293 laps, several laps shy of the full-length NASCAR Cup Series distance here. We go 400 miles, pit road speed limit at a measly 45 miles an hour. Tires will be a premium here at Darlington, at a track as old as it is and one that wears out the tires quite quickly. 8 of them available to those drivers tonight as we move forward. 3 green-white checkered attempts if we need to extend this race past scheduled distance, and our stages go like this. We share them 90 apiece between stage 1 and stage 2. Lap 90 will throw the yellow for the end of the first stage. Second stage ends at lap 180. From there, we go the rest of the way, 113 laps to the checkered flag at lap 293. Before we look forward into this race from the Lady in Black, let's take a look in the rearview mirror. Several weeks ago, maybe get a refresher of what happened not that long ago, our last race of the season at Dover Motor Speedway, and this one was a doozy. Very tough at the track called White Lightning. Steven Stempien led this race from the pole. Several scares early. Logan Sturgeon among those facing the inside wall, but because they were underneath the racing surface, no yellow was thrown, and same deal here for the driver of the number 8 for Drinking Bros Racing, Kip Easley. Steven Stempien, the winner of stage 1, until calamity on the following restart. Austin Shoemaker, there is Alex Muscarella, can't catch a break there on the restart as the 14 car goes high, and a big slam later on. Colin Forster, former winner this season, ending up hard into the outside wall. That contact with Justin Winter sending him around, and then the battle for the lead had some fireworks. Lawson Peel creating the first proper lead change of the race. He would go on to win stage 2, but here came Stempien fighting right back with a counter punch, going back down to the inside. Stempien, the dominant driver of the day, second win of the 2024 season, his first since the opener at Daytona International Speedway. Bradley, the story of Stempien is one that's so special just because of the hardships he's had to face from day 1 in this series this year. That big comeback win certainly meant a lot to him.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before the race, and you were asking me how I felt things were going to go here tonight. And, you know, we talk about how this race can go green, it can spread out, but also it's difficult to pass. I think the 88's on fire right now. He's kind of been in that, well, I'm behind mindset the whole time this season's been going on. So as soon as he got back to healthy, he's been pushing this thing. He's been up front. He's looking really good, and I see no reason he can't be a 3-time winner.
For sure, and on the front of the win at Dover Motor Speedway, it came in both ways, right? Not only was the comeback for, you know, the injury that he tore his Achilles earlier on in the season and had to spend a lot of races just putting around for maybe 60 or so laps and then calling it a day because of the pain. This one, a full complete race in dominant fashion, was able to win that one and gain redemption in that sense, but also getting redemption for Dover, which he considers one of his favorite tracks on the sim. And he told me after that race, he said, I had a chip on my shoulder from last year. He had that date circled. He got it checked off. Stempien, the winner, his second of the 2024 Sunoco Cup season. He'll look for that third one, like you're saying, Bradley, and I definitely am not surprised if we do see him back in victory lane. Some Sunoco trends to get you through before we get this race started. Chevrolet has won 4 of the last 5 races. A lot of that courtesy, of course, to Lawson Peel, who's won 3 of those races. Sonoma, Charlotte, and Indianapolis most recently. Stempien, of course, the winner at Dover, putting the bow ties on top as of late. Curtis Kelly is the only other driver with a different manufacturer to have gone to victory lane recently. That was at Nashville Superspeedway as he's driving a Toyota Camry. Second race trend of tonight before we get started. The winner of the last 4 Darlington races, Bradley, has an average start of 4.25. I don't think that is, it's a proper example of just how good track position is for you here at this track.
Yes, that proves it right there that it's difficult to pass here, and usually you have to be in the top 5 to win this race. Well, I feel bad for anybody that's 6th, 7th, even 20th position. I feel really bad because your track position is going to come down pit road, and if you make a mistake on one of the most difficult pit roads to get on and off of, you could very quickly lose all of that ground you made up earlier in the race.
And that also helps with the next gen car, how much dirty air it produces on the back end of the cars. You're going to have a tough time passing on the racetrack. So if you can qualify up high and up front, that may give you the best shot at least winning this race. Obviously, anything can happen, much like we saw last season, which, that one was a topic of conversation between Jesse Whittington and Zach Wilson. The crazy finish in the last several hundred feet until the start-finish line. That one, certainly a storyline we'll talk about over the course of the night. Whittington, again, on that bubble spot, 16th in point standing. Zach Wilson has fallen off quite a bit. We'll detail that story as we move forward into tonight's broadcast. Several minutes until we get qualifying done with and get ourselves trackside for the start of this one. Bradley, I'd say that it's been a long while. Sunoco Cup Series racing happens every 2 weeks or so, but, we had this extended break. Now we're getting to race in back-to-back weeks. Your thoughts on what are the keys to victory here at Darlington, and for those trying to scrap out of, bottom top 16 territory, even outside of playoff territory, what is needed tonight in order to get over that hump?
Save your tires and don't hit the wall. I know it sounds easy, and it's really easy to say, but at this racetrack, the discipline to just run your own race and race the racetrack, it's like tunnel vision sometimes. You get stuck up there near the wall, you're constantly riding on the edge, you're kind of teetering on that threshold of when can I get back to the throttle, and then you want to mix in 20, 30 other people in your way. It gets very difficult here to just race your own race and keep it quiet for as long as you can. Plus you kind of feel this track kind of changing and it gets away from you, so it can be very deceitful. And like you said, the lady in black, it's a dance the whole time. You're just, as soon as you have a miscue, step on someone's foot, you'll find yourself probably exiting a little early tonight.
Well, two things, Bradley, on the point you just made. Number one, you're saying it's easy to not hit the wall, Darlington, or it's easier said than done. I mean, they coined an entire phrase after hitting the wall here. You get a Darlington stripe when you get into the outside wall here at this raceway. But second off, you make a great point there about just trying to get on top of others and make sure that you can be that man at the end of the night in order to put yourself in the best position possible. Even if it can create some consequences along the way, it's about whether you want to weigh that risk and the reward and see which one is worth taking at the end of the night. So that'll be a lot of fun for sure as we move forward, and plenty of big names down there too. I know Whittington is someone we've talked about often, but look at guys like Chris Shoemaker. He's someone to watch for as well. Wyatt Brackett has formerly been strong in this series, and although this season hasn't been the best for him overall, that's still a season worth salvaging to make the postseason. Curtis Kelly, one-time winner, he's already on that bubble, and he's already got to win to theoretically lock him in, but there's just so many things you have to consider. A lot of working cogs in this machine to make a postseason run possible, so, that'll be really interesting to see how that all shares out in the midst of this one from Darlington. And we got a long race tonight, 293 laps, Bradley, so that'll give you plenty of time to adjust, plenty of time to learn, and plenty of time to step on others' toes if you need to.
Yeah, it's plenty of time to make mistakes as well. So like I said, you gotta pace yourself and discipline yourself. This is definitely a driver's racetrack, and if you have a feel for it, you have a lot of fun here. But very, very few of these drivers like this place, I can tell you that. Usually it takes a victory or a really successful day to get to liking this place. It's an acquired taste for sure, and the old surface, like I said, is going to chew these tires up. I'm excited to get it underway though, because this is one of those places that definitely creates some unique situations.
Great point. The love isn't necessarily universal across the driver base. You either love this track or you hate it. There's really no in between like you can have with a lot of other speedways on the schedule. Drivers are trackside. We'll bring you tonight's starting grid of the 12th race of the 2024 Sunoco Cup Series season, the penultimate race of the regular season, as we get down to business. On the pole is the number 88 of Steven Stempian with some beautiful colors tonight. We'll toss into the throwbacks as we get deeper into the show, but he's going to look for his third win of the campaign. Zach Wilson, former winner, last season's W holder here at Darlington Raceway, looking to go 2 in a row at the track. Too tough to tame. That's row number 1. First 2 drivers to see the green flag. Richard Swavely in the 32. This is a run he needs to get into the playoffs. He's going to start in 3rd place. Shane Wyatt, the rookie standout, will be on his outside in position number 4. Colin Forrester absolutely wiped out at Dover Motor Speedway several weeks ago. He wants to redeem himself tonight. He starts in 5th. Alex Muscarella in the number 48 car for Dropping the Hammer will be on his outside in position number 6. Inside and outside row number 4, you will find Brandon Banks in the number 54 for Drinkin' Bros Racing, alongside the Prestige Worldwide Racing number 16 of Garrett Brown. Final 2 drivers inside your top 10, a pair of Chevrolets for Drinkin' Bros Racing, Joe Sanchez on the inside in 9th, and Kip Easley rounding out the top 10.
Well, now we're in that spot where you were saying statistically the chances of winning this race, it gets slimmer and slimmer. That average of 4.25. Well, Aaron Adcox is going to be behind that 8 ball. He's going to start in 11th position with Alex Huffman to his outside in the number 10. Then it's 13th position with Chris Shoemaker in the 4, Wyatt Brackett in 14th. Justin Winters in the 15th position with Curtis Kelly 16th. And then we go back to 17th with Justin Erb, Logan Sturgeon in the 26th and 18th. And going to round out your top 20, it's Sean Kalis and Dustin Reeves in the number 6.
21st is the number 9 car of Bill Schoonover inside row number 11. He'll have Jesse Whittington, the driver who was oh so close to the victory in this race last year. He'll roll off from 22nd place. 23rd and last to put a time in qualifying is league owner Dakota Curtis. Ray Rogers in the number 23 car, fast in practice, did not get a time down in Q. He'll be back in 24th place, back in row 12. Austin Reedy, the points leader, deep in this field to start 25th. James Kunkel behind him in 26th position. Then right behind them in the row, Justin Hendry in the 1 car, Casey Knighton for race team in the number 28 Dr. Pepper Toyota Camry, followed by Charles Feltz, Charles Stevens in the 7 car. Chris Progar rounding out a 30 car field from Darlington. We talk about how the love isn't fully universal. A lot of drivers like to ditch out of this race just because it is so hard to drive. But who's up for the challenge tonight? Trying to get a win in this 2024 Sunoco Cup Series season. Steven Stempian and Zach Wilson round the field out of turn 4. We are racing from Darlington. Car in the outside wall already. Field is scattering around Garrett Brown. Some others going sideways at the entry of 3. Door banging Wyatt Brackett, Chris Shoemaker. Brackett goes for the spin. Yellow is out for the first time tonight as Chuck Feltz comes slamming in. And Richard Swavely further up the road in trouble. A wild start here from Darlington.
Yeah, it's unfortunate already. 5 cars having problems all the way from Chris Progar, Charles Stevens, Richard Swavely. Looks like Wyatt Brackett has already put it behind the wall, and the front end of this machine, Swavely, completely destroyed. This is not the start that Swavely needed to this race. He's right on that cutoff there in 17th position. He needs a good day, and he wants to pick up some spots, so this is not what he needs to start in the top 3 and end up all the way out of the top 20.
Remember, he was that man coming into this race, 17th in standings, 4 points away from Jesse Whittington's last playoff spot. And this is how it all unfolded. It's a 2-parter. This one up front with Swavely just getting loose and overcorrecting there into the outside wall off turn 4. Him and Joe Sanchez had some issues, and there's Garrett Brown coming in rather quickly at the exit of turn 4, getting his bumper completely ripped off. But behind them, a ton of bobbles around Garrett Brown. That's really where this all started, around Sanchez and Brown. 16 car goes for the slide. They make the contact, and here's Chuck Feltz getting into Wyatt Brackett. Tough hit there early. But I believe this starts, Bradley, again, where Garrett Brown was, and then it sort of just packed everybody together, making 3 wide action here, and that's where Shoemaker goes sideways, gets Brackett involved in the spin.
Yeah, we'll try to get a better angle of this here with 16. I think he got to the side of the 55 a little bit there. Joe Sanchez, and that just kind of creates a stack of. Again, this gets back. There's not a lot of room on this racetrack. However, on the backstretch, you can go down. It's just, it really messes up that entry to the next corner. So you gotta have your head on a swivel, and unfortunately, because it's such a tight 3 and 4, it's hard to see what's on the other side.
And for a ton of those guys, they end up behind the wall or just already scrambling to get damage repair. There is Season 1 champ Garrett Brown entering pit road. Definitely not the night he wanted to start off with. You know, with some damage on the front end. Chuck Phelps as well. Front bumper ripped off. That seems to be the common thread. Chuck Stevens is in. Doesn't seem like he has that much damage, but for a bulk of the field, they already have some damage they got to sort out. There are no fast repairs here in this Sunoco Cup Series, so whatever damage you pick up over the course of the race, whether it be self-inflicted or not, needs to have time taken in order to fully repair that. And I'm sure for a ton of those drivers, those repairs will last quite a long while, and we'll get them probably a lap down or more. For Richard Swavely, again, tough position considering his context going into tonight's race. Playoff-wise, the chances are dwindling, and if you have this race end for you almost instantaneously, you're not going to have a good time for the next maybe 289 laps that are remaining in this one. We are doubled up and ready to go back under racing action from Darlington, South Carolina. Steven Stempien, Zach Wilson rounding the field out of turn 4. Going for this one more time after the opening lap caution. Back into the Geico restart zone. Stempien waits a while, hops on the gas pedal. We're back under green as there's Richard Swavely, I believe, or one of those trying to catch up with the rest of the field. Entering turn 1, Stempien has the advantage. Zach Wilson, Alex Muscarella, or Shane White, Alex Muscarella, among those going side by side for third.
Looking back here, there's a lot of turbulence happening already on this restart, and it happens again. This is Justin Henry, who almost loses it out of turn 2. He's back into the race groove. Okay, that's a fortunate deal there. That's almost exactly what we saw earlier with the 55 of Sanchez and the 4 of Shoemaker.
That's a sigh of relief for sure, as Henry is able to save that race car. And again, one thing that is common here at Darlington Raceway, apart from the fact that there is not that much room to move around with other cars around you, is that you can easily get loose off the corner. It stacks up way behind the 71 of Curtis Kelly. That's back in 11th place. There's Aaron Adcock in the 17 for Poman Motorsports down low. Jesse Whittington, who started this one deep in this field, moving his way through. Logan Sturgeon right in the background. The onboard look here from Kelly as he tries to survive, but just so easy to get this rear end kicked out, especially with how rough this track surface is, and couple that with the narrow racing groove you have here at Darlington. It could be the easy recipe for disaster. I see a lot of that happening out of turn 2, and that's really the derivative of our first caution of the night. Look on board here with Whittington.
You already see a few drivers with those Darlington Stripes. You see that paint missing on the left side, or right side rather, of these machines. And there's another one for the 6 of Dustin Reeves. He's going to get his first one of the day. We're only 8 laps in, and I would say probably by lap 20, if these guys keep going at the rate they're going, there's not going to be much left on the right side.
And it's really a balancing game to where you want to be as fast as those in front of you, but you also want to make sure you don't get swallowed up by the competition behind, so you're forced in this really boxed-in type of pace to where you may not be comfortable with the handling of your race car, but you have to keep this pace up if you want to stay afloat in the field. And we know that tire saving is surely going to be a big topic over the course of the night as you ride on board with Bill Schoonover giving up this one, 20th place, and he's going to go hard into the outside wall. I believe he might have got some help. On lap 9, more cars getting trouble, and this time it's the Napa Chevrolet.
Well, he got help. He might have got help after the fact, but it looked like he kind of missed the entry to turn 1 and then got help back to the wall. He couldn't come off the wall. There wasn't enough room for those guys on the inside, and I think that's what caused the contact. And unfortunately, it looks like maybe the front toe link or rear toe link, something's broke on that suspension.
It looked like he might have made contact with Justin Winters, who gave him the send to the outside wall, but it looked like a little bit more as if the 9 car was already out of shape and was trying to get away from Winters to avoid contact, and instead just stuffed himself into the wall. Yeah, it doesn't look like Winters gave him a touch at all. It just felt like arrow contact, and Schoonover was just anticipating that Winters would get there, so he wanted to get out of the way, and unfortunately puts himself into the wall. Another car slightly taken out early in this one. Schoonover might be falling a lap down. Indeed, he has, already back in 25th place. There's Stempien up by at least half a second over Zach Wilson. Easy for those at the front. Obviously, some jitters at the mid-pack and behind, but for those up front, they seem to be cool, calm, and collected, and that goes the same for this man from Massachusetts right here. Steven Stempian leading this one from the get-go. Probably didn't want that opening yellow to disrupt his rhythm, but now he's locked in. He's in his zone.
He's definitely in his zone, and you can see him kind of using the shifting. That's going to help set up these corners, dropping it down into fourth gear. Goes through 3 and 4. Going to let it roll for what seems like an eternity before you get back to the throttle. But that clean air helping out tremendously for him to stay in that rhythm and be able to hit his marks. To wait and see if Zach Wilson has anything for him, though. The 51, like we said, he got a little bit relaxed there earlier, but now has turned the heat back up as we approach the end of the regular season. I like what he's doing here, staying up in the top 3. He needs to kind of reverse what happened to him at a few other places, like Charlotte comes to mind, where he got knocked out of the top 10. There was a few streaks that we talked about during the regular season that, you know, as soon as we mentioned them, Kenneth, they ended that day. So it'd be good to see him get back on track as well.
And for Wilson, he's in a very interesting spot in the territorial sense with the playoffs, because of course that win in Texas theoretically gives you the golden ticket to make it into the playoffs this year, but you can also put yourself in that situation to where if you struggle so harshly over the next several races and going into the playoffs, you could fall out of points territory even with that win in the back pocket. So for Wilson, how mentally challenging is that as a driver to have the win go your way, and then all of a sudden the season kind of unravels for you in the poor way, and you don't get the finishes you desire, and now it's down to the final 2 in order to prove yourself worthy enough, even though you had it in mind that you may have been locked in. No matter what happens, you still got to work for the money.
Yeah, psychologically, it's very challenging, but I don't think that Zach Wilson has anything to prove to us. We believe in him, and I know everyone watching at home right now on VSPEED definitely believes in what this 51 is capable of. However, you got to reprove it to yourself. You got to teach yourself. Everything's self-taught here with racing, and that trial and error of what works and what doesn't, well, he found the perfect storm there at Texas, but it was almost like he threw the recipe book out after that. So he's just got to get back on track, figure out what he was doing right at the beginning of the season, and right now it looks like maybe he figured that out as he runs in the top 3 for 17 laps in.
In his first 3 starts of the season, Wilson had 5th, and 1st with that win at Texas. Then after that, couldn't pick up a top 15 until the last race, Dover Motor Speedway, our last race before this one. Before that, he had run 26th, 33rd, 20th, 37th, 21st, and 16th right after that win at the Lone Star State. So for Wilson, surely things have turned upside down, but tonight in his beautiful throwback scheme that we'll detail in just several moments, he wants to put himself back into championship contention. Fight for 3rd still going on. Pair of Chevrolets. Alex Muscarella in the 48. You're looking on board with him now. Shane Wyatt right behind him, the rookie driver who has done so well over the course of this season and surely impressed us at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Bradley, not that long ago. Like to see Shane Wyatt this up front early in this one, and we know just how good Shane Wyatt can be at some of these harsher to drive tracks. He had a top 10 at Dover several weeks ago, so probably not a surprise that Wyatt's getting into his groove here at Darlington.
Yeah, when we were talking about all the rookies, there was a couple standouts right there early. We go and talk about the 87 of Eddie Smith. He was one of the standouts right at the start, but then you had the sleeper Shane Wyatt, who just progressively did his own thing, started to show the strength here at the end of the regular season, and now he's in contention to be in the top 5 in points. I mean, there's no reason that he can't go up here and get a win with the way he's driving right now.
Looking to become the 2nd rookie driver this season, I believe, to get a win in 2024. The only other driver who's done it so far this season, Alex Huffman at Talladega Superspeedway in late April. Why don't we get into some of the throwbacks of this race from Darlington as we watch some battles further back on the field. Justin Hendry settling himself amongst some of the others behind him. Casey Knighton among those back in the top 20 or so. Let's start with the race leader. This is a very special number 88 throwback to none other than Dale Earnhardt Jr. Made these colors popular back in 2017. The Exalta Flashpoint Chevrolet SS that Earnhardt Jr. ran in the Cup Series. back when they used to run the SS with the Gen 6 model Cup cars. Stempian making this one look good up front. Had a little fun reveal to show for it in the Discord chat. And Shirley Bradley, this one looks good under the daylight. Hopefully it'll look good under the lights if we get to that point over this race. Stempian with a beautiful one tonight.
Yeah, there's quite a few, and some of them a little more retro than others. And contact with the wall there just now out of turn 2. Zach Wilson. Hopefully we get to show this thing in its good condition. A little bit of a brush on the wall doesn't look like it's affected it too much here. But Zach Wilson here in the throwback, and I just lost my document, so sorry about that.
All good, all good. We'll get to it though, but for Wilson, you know, that's a typical Darlington Stripe, although he's so slowly falling back to the clutches of Muscarella and Shane Wyatt, that former battle for third that we were touching on just not that long ago as Wyatt taps the wall at the exit of turn 2. Wilson with a bit of an obscure pole. This is Lake Speed's 1994 Ford Quality Care Ford Thunderbird throwback. So for Wilson, he's digging deep into the archives. This one, when I saw it on the Discord chat, I was truly amazed at the colors, how much they pop on this race car. And again, you know, you look at how they look from the origin and the throwbacks that drivers are referring to, how they looked in that moment. I'd say that transfer it to a next-gen Ford Mustang, and it looks beautiful. It looks gorgeous on the racetrack, and Wilson proving its worth and proving his skill in second place.
Back here in the third spot, you have Ryan Newman's 2006 Altel Dodge Charger style. And I would have to say, as far as cars go, that you don't... I always remember Ryan Newman as the guy that found a way to make a car roll over in places that it shouldn't. So that's the only thing the recollection of that car for me is just the entire suspension flying apart at I believe it was
Daytona. You're talking
Daytona,
2003 Daytona 500, right?
Yeah, I believe so. And then he found another way to do it somehow at Daytona again. So. Yeah, Ryan Newman's just one of those guys that he goes so fast he goes airborne. Shane Wyatt wearing the colors. It looks good, though. And unfortunately, we just don't have Dodge in NASCAR anymore. It would look even perfect on a Charger right now.
That's what a ton of people have been talking about when NASCAR introduced the next-gen car to be like, hey, we want to get more manufacturers in this series. Everyone turned their head to Dodge and said, please come back. We want a Charger NASCAR Cup car. Obviously, that hasn't happened, but, you know, trying to ignite some of those conversations possibly with this paint scheme. But I was definitely anticipating, Bradley, that you would go a different way with what you were going to say there. Instead of the airborne conversation, I was going to say that Ryan Newman always finds a way to make it hard on others to pass him. So I feel like with Shane Wyatt, you know, maybe he can have that happen. Maybe put that on a bit of Joe Sanchez right behind him in fifth, where, you know, he's throwbacking to a driver that is accustomed to staying up front and winning and passing cars. This is the throwback to Jimmy Johnson's 2006 Lowe's Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS. And you look at those colors and the design, and as a stock car racing fan, it is almost unmistakable. Sanchez making this one look good with Drinkin' Bros Racing, and even the Hendrick font on the number 5 and the 5 alongside it with the 55 on the Chevrolet Camaro looks good on this one with Sanchez. Calm race for now. He runs fifth, and we may even have the battle for fourth heating up between the driver that's hard to pass and the driver that likes to pass. As Kip Easley and Aaron Adcock, this is them going side by side for 14th place, turn 1.
Yeah, it looks like Aaron Adcock a little bit off the pace here. He's lost a couple positions rather quickly. Now has the 9 of Schoonover, who, remember, he caught damage on the outside all by himself, got up into the wall. He's a little off the pace as well as the 22 of Justin Winters goes to the inside. Looks like Justin Winters here in the, this might be one that you're not familiar with out there, but the Scott Bloomquist, I'm going to say that correctly. This is the name I've probably only said once in my life here. Back in 2011, it's the 30 Years of Domination scheme.
From 2011, a classic, and Justin Winters bearing this scheme for obvious reasons in the news. Scott Bloomquist formerly passed away several days ago. A legendary, and I mean legendary in every sense of the word, late model dirt racing icon who died in a plane crash. He was 60 years old at the time of his death. Our hearts, of course, with the Bloomquist family. But for Scott, his legacy certainly will live on in oval racing iconography, and of course in the grassroots racing scene as a driver who was inducted into the National Dirt Late Model Hall of Fame in 2002. He was known as an absolute icon and legend in the sport of dirt car racing. So our thoughts again with the Bloomquist family, but we'd love to see a driver like Justin Winters pouring his heart out with this paint scheme and throwing tribute to a driver that we will keep in memory forever. Another driver to keep in memory forever, Ken Block, who passed away several years ago, and Justin Winters' his teammate for Allen's Legacy Racing, Alex Hoffman, who got his best finish of the season after his win at Talladega, and it was at Dover Motor Speedway where he finished in second place behind Steven Stepien. This is another special paint scheme that he's wearing tonight. This is a tribute to Ken Block and a tribute to his Off-Road Hall of Fame induction in November of 2023. Bradley, I remember when Ken Block and his tragic passing, his news hit the scene. Everyone was completely shocked. I mean, again, another motorsports icon, and great to see Allen's Legacy Racing tributing to those two legends here tonight at a track oh so classic.
And when you think about Ken Block, you think about Superhuman, some of the things that he got away with doing.
Yeah.
All the different YouTube compilations of him just ripping around in Ford Fiestas, and what he could do with a rally car was incredible. How many times did they film? I think they were up to like 11 or 12 where they would just go to real world locations and shut down the whole city just so they could see what it looked like to drift around a statue. Just an incredible guy, and the way that he drove that, I would only wish to be 10% as talented as that man was.
Yeah, Ken Block was ridiculous in all of the best ways that we described that. As there's Brandon Banks going to the inside in his little patriotic throwback, trying to get underneath that Ken Block Ford Mustang scheme. Unsuccessful, though, in his bid for Turn 1. But I remember, YouTube days with Jim Connor. It's still going on to this day, but Ken Block made that popular. But Ken Block, in every way on the dirt road side of things, one of the greatest drivers that you'll ever see, whether it be freestyling or just actual competitive motorsports racing. Ken Block, an absolute amazing human being, an amazing race car driver. So our thoughts with Ken Block, and our thoughts, of course, with this paint scheme that we're seeing tonight. Here's a battle for 8th place. Justin Urban, a pretty interesting paint scheme that we could not find the origin of. I don't believe we asked him before tonight's race, but there's Austin Reedy, points leader, who basically has dug out of the trenches from 25th and now moving onwards to make it inside the top 10.
Reedy having a little bit of a connection issue. We have actually talked about that several times this season, where he's never in the same location and can't always rely on the internet of where he's going to be. But yes, it's working through. That's 17. I apologize. 17 positions gained from the 96. And we said how difficult the pass it was at Darlington. Yeah. He said, hold on to this. I'm going to go up here and just race my way into the top 10 before the first stage is even up.
Well, this is a good point to do it, because 37 laps in, enough of a long run is kicked in to the point where, guys like Austin Reedy can strut his stuff and his tire-saving abilities. Now he's moving his way up through the field. We'll see if he can gain any more potential stage points as we approach halfway through stage number 1, which will conclude at lap number 90. Here's a look on board with the 94 Chevrolet of Jesse Whittington. Not a actual throwback, but some throwback-ish designs on his Focus Fuel Chevrolet Camaro. A look on board with him and the camera on the bottom right of your screen. That became very popular 1 year ago here at this very track, Darlington Raceway, where several hundred feet from the finish line, Whittington looked like he had his first career Sunoco Cup Series win in the bag, and then got loose at the exit of the corner. Zach Wilson went on by and went on to win that race. Now, Whittington did get his revenge later in the season at Darlington, but I'm sure that a guy like Whittington going into this track knows the context of what happened last season, and he wants to avenge for it. And even funny, when I was looking into this race and looking at the historical context of this race, I found a YouTube comment from last season's broadcast where Jesse Whittington said on the YouTube chat, he was the only comment there, he said, watching this again to learn and not make that mistake again. Whittington knows the lessons learned this time around. Not the greatest race going on for Whittington, with a bit of damage on the front end, but rolling inside the top 10, Bradley, I say with a long race to go, still plenty of statements to make.
while that was happening, we just missed it there. The 31 of Colin Forster, who is in a throwback of his own. I believe he's been running this for a little bit, but you know, this is one of those Bill Elliott style schemes, the McDonald's throwback. He just had a major issue out of turn 2, and the 26 of Sturgeon almost got into the back of him, and that's the Terry Labonte throwback on that 26. But you're seeing this field spread out quite tremendously. It's almost a 19 second gap, and some of these drivers like Dustin Reeves are at threat of going a lap down as Stempion's coming out of turn 2 down the backstretch. Dustin Reeves within about probably 3 seconds as he hits the wall hard into 3 and 4.
As is the juncture of the race to which the field is going to start to separate massively, and for Reeves, you can tell the ailment behind his number 6 Ford Mustang starting to struggle a little more with the handling of the race car, and by this point, midway through this stage 1 run, you're going to have the tires either completely overcooked on the right front or completely destroyed on the rear end. You really don't get to have a positive end on both sides, and there's Steven Stempion, the race leader, already getting by. He's about 4.5 seconds away from the second place car, Alex Muscarella, and the seconds only continue to add on from there. Reeves is going to give the benefit of the doubt to Stempion, lead him through on the front straightaway, let him by, and Stempion puts Dustin Reeves a lap down. There is Muscarella, who found his way to second, got by Zach Wilson, and has been able to patrol nicely in a scheme that he usually runs in this series this year, but technically you could put this in the throwback category. This is Jimmy Johnson's 2017 Lowe's Cobalt scheme that he was run back in the Next Gen era, where he actually won his last career NASCAR Cup Series race at Dover Motor Speedway. Not with these colors, but with the typical Lowe's blue colors that he wore back in that year. And how about this? Austin Reedy, Zach Wilson, Shane Wyatt, they're starting to bunch up. This is halfway through the top 10, and we've got a ton of cars in this mix.
Yeah, Zach Wilson just trying to hold on to the top 5, and then he has Banks and Reedy going side by side. They get it sorted out now. Wilson able to hold on to the position while those two were side by side, but there was a dive there at one point through 3 and 4 that I thought for sure Reedy was going to get 2 for 1 special, but now falls back to 7th. And this is just one of those, well, maybe the tires have fallen off a little bit early than they predicted. This is kind of the learning phase of this race. The first stage, this is where you're going to see how far you can push it. And thankfully, we have that caution that'll group these guys back up and they can apply whatever they learn.
And this run, you'll see a lot of the comers and goers, to which those drivers who are going, Shane Wyatt, Zach Wilson,
Wow.
they've been falling off quite tremendously over this run. Here's Zach Wilson pinning it down to the inside apron. There's only a dashed line to distinguish the racing line from the very wide apron. Wilson is in on pit road for the first time tonight. Here halfway through the run, lap 47. Dustin Reeves is also called in for pit road. Several others are making their stops now. Jesse Whittington made his stop about a lap ago. There's Logan Sturgeon in as well. So the calling card up for a ton of these guys at the mid portion of the field, making their first stops now.
So this is one of those, not only is the entry of pit road unique, but there's also kind of that offset, that staggered offset where they built the pit road back in the mid-90s. The backstretch used to be the front stretch at this racetrack, and you can still see kind of some remnants of that, but the entry to this pit road, we're right on board here. It starts here. And how many places do you start down pit road in turn 3? I can only think of maybe 1 or 2 other tracks that's the case. And Martinsville is one of those places where you're coming down the backstretch almost when you're hitting pit road.
And for a ton of these guys, Darlington is one of the worst pit road entry tracks in all of NASCAR and all of the oval side of things, because you can't really see it all that well. It's so flat down there, especially from the bank angle perspective you have here entering turn 3. You have to enter from about here, hop on the brakes, turn at the same time, and I've seen plenty of drivers proudly that have made the mistake of blocking up the right front and pitting their car right into those pit road attenuator barrels at the start of the pit road wall. It can be such an easy mistake to make. Thankfully, no one getting into those barrels right now. There was Joe Sanchez getting the left sides up on his Chevrolet. He is in. Shane Wyatt also made his pit stop about a lap ago. Looks like several others are calling for pit road. There's race teams Casey Knighton in the number 28, there's the difficulty of it, trying to miss those barrels on the right side. Brandon Banks is in as well. We have some news to share with you. Logan Sturgeon, black flag, entering pit road. He's still there, serving the pit road speeding penalty.
This race just got a lot more difficult. Very easy to go a couple laps down. You know, it's very short around this place, and this pit road speed limit is going to kind of exacerbate the whole situation. 45 miles per hour while everyone else is zipping around this place at 150 plus. Not the situation you want. Unfortunate, but at the same time, we do have where he can get some of these laps back. Maybe he can flip the strategy around, get back on the lead lap there for the final stint.
Well, there's Sturgeon still serving the penalty. Sean Kalish, Justin Erb among those in. There is what was now race leader Austin Reedy entering pit road. Steven Stepien, who has dominated this race, has found his way onto pit road. He exits just now, only in position number 3. That shows you just how much track position helps you at a track like this. Alex Huffman for Allen's Legacy Racing, he is in onto pit road. One of those designers and graphic production members for Stuart Haas Racing. He's had a ton of success recently in the Xfinity Series with Riley Herbst, Cole Custer getting to victory lane as of late. And the Ken Block throwback makes the way into pit road and getting those fresh Goodyear Eagles on the race car. Austin Reedy will join him at the exit of pit road. They'll try and come out simultaneously. Meanwhile, Stepien goes back in front to take over the race lead. Some lap traffic to deal with, though. Knighton right behind him. Chris Shoemaker right in front. Needs to deal with this sandwich if he wants to survive and make it all the way to the end of the first stage. Now, over the last 3 seasons, Ross Harlow, Steven Stepien, and Zach Wilson have won the races held here at Darlington. And over the last 3 seasons, the winner leads an average of about 74.3 laps. Who has the most led in that category back in season 5 is Steven Stepien. He led 100. It is certainly looking to be the case right now, on par with another dominant performance, Bradley, that Stepien is trying to put together.
Oh, he almost gets into the back of the 4 car. That was close. I think Shoemaker was just trying to let him have the inside there in that entry, and that was almost a close one. You have to be careful navigating this lap traffic. You got a 4.5 second lead, but you know, sometimes it's a little difficult when you're running a little bit different line than the rest of these guys, and the closing speed is so much faster, and he's got a little bit of a tire advantage as well on the 4 car. It can get a little challenging, so I hope for his sake that he's able to just keep it clear, keep it clean, and wrap this stage up, get his points, and he's definitely on the right track. Joe Sanchez, 4.7 seconds back. That's almost an eternity here.
Well, with that situation you just brought up, and with how narrow this track surface is, as you ride on board with that Ally Chevrolet of Joe Sanchez riding in second, how do you try and prepare those passes to the lap traffic cars? Because you know the speed discrepancy will be large naturally on pace, but
we got a car
especially
spinning.
if tires go in. Yeah, there is a car spinning. Apron right now. That is Garrett Brown, I believe, in trouble. He is able to correct the race car. No yellow will fly. That is technically under the racing line. I'm not sure if that was the entry to pit road that Brown might have botched on the way in. Let's take a look.
We just came out of pit road. We hit the rewind button here a little bit. Looks like he was just coming out. And maybe cold tires, a combination of maybe damage still on the suspension. He was just getting it up to speed. He hadn't even hit the banking, and the car down there on the apron, I would say, is probably the main factor. It's just so slippery down there.
So Brown gets that transition on the apron, goes for the slide, and somehow that does not ignite the yellow flag. We're going to stay green here at lap 57. And boy, Garrett Brown hasn't had the racing gods be kind to him tonight. He is 13 laps down. He, of course, got the front end damage from the lap 1 incident where he got contacted with Joe Sanchez on the back straightaway, went into the outside wall, and then even worse, had another hit to Richard Swavely, who is now out of this race, 12 laps down in 27. There's a look at our race recap. Only 1 yellow, but Brown was part of that yellow. That brought us under the pace car for the first and only time so far tonight. There is Ray Rogers making his move under Forrester. 2 Florida natives going at it for 11.
Yeah, I'm kind of seeing the speed pickup here for Ray Rogers late in this run. I've seen quite a few of these guys kind of do a short pit as well compared to the rest of the field. You've got Colin Forster, who has 12 laps on this stint. Ray Rogers only 7 laps, so that might be a combination of it as well, with Ray Rogers stretching the run a little bit further. He might look a lot faster than some of these guys, especially with that tire difference. So maybe he played this strategy well. And again, it goes back to what I said in the pre-race. You got to run your own race, think of your own strategy, and whatever you can do to pick up as many spots as possible. You saw the 96 of Reedy. He's kind of went stagnant since he got up into the top 10, and he's actually fighting very hard here. Justin Erb looks like it's actually some lap down traffic, I think. Sturgeon.
Yeah, it is.
To the inside here. Not quite sure what happened to the 26. Well, yeah, he got that speeding penalty. So he's kind of on recovery mode. He's 4 laps down.
And there's Reedy blowing on by. The 26 car needing to recover here. The yellow stage brake possibly could help him, but in a pretty deep hole right now in this Terry Labonte throwback as he tries to patrol off of turn 4 nicely. There's Austin Reedy getting by another lap car. That's Sean Kalis and his pursuit of Jesse Whittington. Difference on tires between those two. Reedy pitted 9 laps ago, and Whittington pitted 6 laps earlier, so a big difference in tires. And when they came down pit road, you might see a full congregation of these guys soon, Bradley, just because Rogers pitted 10 laps ago, Alex Huffman pitted a lap earlier, but you know, Austin Reedy might be in that same boat. They pitted all around the same time, so you may see those tire levels and tire lights get pretty close between each other, and that may ignite a potential phenomenal battle for the last spot in points for the stage. There's Justin Erb right in front of Alex Huffman, the onboard look.
So Huffman here, he's chasing down Erb. I think it was the 90 of Kalis that kind of, not so much on purpose, but just kind of interfering with the entry and exit for the 20, and that allowed Huffman to gain almost a full second that last time by. Now you can kind of see the 20 of Erb pull back away with the clean air, but they've still got some more lap traffic with Sturgeon up ahead of them. It's going to be another situation here that Justin Erb's just going to have to navigate it as careful as possible.
And the battle for 7th up the road underway. Austin Reedy sliding underneath Jesse Whittington. Quick work of the 94 Chevrolet. Austin Reedy up to 7th. Again, one of the biggest movers of this race to now. He started 25th, now up into that 7th spot. And big moving as well for Jesse Whittington, who rolled off the grid in 22nd place. And with this run, and given Richard Swavely's circumstances being involved in that first yellow, Whittington, as long as he stays alive in this race, could very easily put up a sizable gap between himself and the rest of those below the cut line heading into Daytona next Sunday night. So while this isn't the absolute strongest run that Whittington wants in order to fully lock himself into playoff territory, Bradley, I'd argue that having a race like this, as consistent as it is, and building up those stage points over the night, that'll help big time for a playoff run.
Absolutely, and it also kind of helps. It's unfortunate for Richard Swavely. He was the guy that was right behind him there on that mark, but Swavely having a rough start to this race, so that kind of helps cushion what you have going on here, even if it's not your best finish. 8th place is going to be good enough. I think with Daytona, you can kind of go in there with a little more conservative and not have to worry as much about getting caught up in something. Now, I wanted to say earlier, we were talking about throwback paint schemes, but how about that shirt? How about that throwback?
Yeah.
The Papyrus NASCAR Racing logo on them. Oh man, he's loose out of 2, but yeah, that's a throwback in itself right there. So we'll give him credit for having a throwback on the car.
I was gonna say no throwback on the actual paint scheme on track, but the throwback on the shirt. I like the apparel there with the NASCAR Racing logo on Whittington's shirt. There he is running inside the top 10. He's got 8th right now, which would theoretically give him about 3 or so points at the end of this stage, which we are about 13 or 23 laps away from ending, actually 23, give or take, at this point of the race. There's Chris Progar running in 14th place. No throwback for the 7 car, the same Kenwood car we've been accustomed to seeing over the course of the season, but he may have some drivers wanting that position. Justin Winters pancaking the outside wall. Curtis Kelly right behind. Aaron Adcock saying thank you very much into turn 3.
Yeah, he almost got a 2 for 1, and he's still working on it as he goes to the peaks to the inside through 3 and 4. 22 has to lift out of the throttle. They made a little bit of contact there. I don't think he's going to get quite clear here. I think the 22 cut him a break, but now the 71's going to take advantage of that. Curtis Kelly to the inside.
Again, it just shows you how difficult it is to
This
drive
is why
here
they're
at
racing
Darlington.
like that.
And there is the race leader, Steven Stempien, getting by Huffman. And that's putting him a lap down, basically, or Winters rather, putting him a lap down in 17th place. Stempien is on the move tonight, and look at the gap between himself and Joe Sanchez continuing to balloon, now up to about 6 seconds between the two Chevrolet Camaros as Shane Wyatt holds the fort down on the podium spot in third. But this is pure domination from Stempien, and a driver missing from tonight in this action, Bradley, Lawson Peel, the two-time Sunoco Cup Series champ, not in this race, which is rather surprising given his track record over the last several weeks. But Peel not being here tonight, I think, opens the door wide open for Stempien, even though he was able to outright beat Peel on raw pace at Dover Motor Speedway back in late July.
Now we're setting up the scenario for 2 3-time winners, and it's looking that way right now. If Stempien doesn't have any problems, the 71 Kelly gets into the wall there briefly, but yeah, it made sense why these guys have so much urgency. They've got the leader coming by to put them a lap down, and now we only have 15 cars left on the lead lap. That shows right there how fast this 88 machine has been for the past 3 weeks.
And it won't help these guys in the mid-pack either, because they will be fighting for Lucky Dog territory. And with this stage break coming up at lap 90, it won't help if you're that second car put a lap down, because that means you won't get that Lucky Dog. You may get it the next yellow, but that is if you guarantee another yellow flag. Well, this is going to be dangerous for the race leader. He's got to tiptoe around this potential lap car competition. Aaron Adcock, you look at his camera on the bottom right of your screen, trying to stay put. Slight contact there with Chris Progar. He'll stay down low on the apron in turn 4. Help from Curtis Kelly's draft is going to give Steven Stempien the run into the first corner. One car down and another left as Curtis Kelly takes the Lucky Dog spot, but that may not hold for long. Entry turn 2, 88 car dives down low. Progar nearing the outside wall, and this will be the setup to lap Chris Progar, the race leader, going by.
Yeah, that's what these guys were ultimately fighting for. They knew that Stempien was going to get by him, but they wanted to be the first car because it's a pretty big gap to the next guy up here with Kip Easley. He's just now going into turn 1 and 2, but that's, you know, probably a good 6 seconds or so that he's ahead, and that's probably going to end up at this stage B, the lucky pass position. So for those guys like Progar and Curtis Kelly, Aaron Adcock, they're racing their hearts out here just to get back on the lead lap.
So for them, they'll be in deep waters trying to surface in some way. Adcock, look, as he battles the outside wall there in the midway of 3 and 4, looking to get that run on the 5-hour energy Toyota Camry of Curtis Kelly. Meanwhile, the battle for second, well, that's starting to close in quite a bit. We talked about the difference on tires, how much that means at a track like Darlington. Well, Muscarella better by at least a 10th or more with 2-lap pressure tires. He is trying to pick up the pace on Sanchez and make him work for that second spot. This is again with 15 laps to go into the end of stage 1. Battle for 9 points on the board, which will certainly help them both. For Muscarella looking to turn his season around, and going into this race, 13th in standings. Any cushion you can build to that cut line, the better. The two Jimmy Johnson throwbacks may be going at it soon for that second spot.
They're definitely going back and forth here. Shane Wyatt has caught up to Brandon Banks. He got some of that dirty air the last time through 3 and 4, had to check out on the exit, so he's going to have to surge back up there. You can see Austin Reedy just off the edge of that frame as well. He's going to crack maybe the top 5 here before the stage break. He has worked up a lot of ground. Again, we went back 19 positions from where he began this race. He's looking at probably top 5 stage points.
He is so quick, Austin Reedy, in this one. In last season's race at Darlington, Austin Reedy finished behind the two that gave us the storybook ending. Reedy started in 3rd in that one, picked up 3rd place at the end with the fastest lap of the race. Reedy is known to be good at these harder to drive tracks, and with this performance that he's put up from pretty far down in the field to start, Reedy is definitely creating the storyline that he will be a driver to watch for, and maybe one to challenge Steven Stempien if the push comes to shove. But you're right, entering the top 5 as soon as he can get by the rookie Shane Wyatt, who has held the fort down nicely in his Ryan Newman Altel throwback, but Reedy is approaching, and there's a look at Zach Wilson behind in 7th place. Meanwhile, Reedy unleashes the pass attempt, turn 3.
We caught up. The 27 I thought was going to get around Brandon Banks, but as soon as he got there, fell off, and out of 3 and 4, looks like Austin Reedy's going to set his sights on Brandon Banks. Plenty of time left to do it as we're just over in laps to go in stage 1.
We've got 2 Drinkin' Bros Racing Chevrolets in the top 5. Sanchez and Banks now running collectively 3rd and 4th. Pretty good night for them, all things considered, with Kip Easley further back in this field, and given the fact that Lawson Peel, the driver who usually stands in the spotlight the most for Drinkin' Bros Racing, is not in this one tonight from Darlington. There's Sanchez getting his way by on Justin Winters and starting to put the pressure on Muscarella once again. They did have that change for position, but we'll just have to see whether it all shakes out furthermore with that tire difference, and whether Brandon Banks may have something to say about his teammate. And car sideways, back straightaway, Chris Progard.
That probably stems from what we were watching earlier, where they were battling for that lucky pass position, and now the situation has changed tremendously. Progard's just going to be happy to get this thing back up to speed and not go another lap down. As you see Stempien coming down the backstretch, it looks like he might.
Dialing up the replay, we'll get a second look. Momentarily, Stempien getting around. Progard entering pit road. Not a good sign for the 7 car. What happens here, Bradley, on this attempt?
Again, I think it goes back to Progard was racing for that lucky pass, and maybe gets some help here from Adcock. I'm not entirely sure. We're going to have the turn 2 exit wall right here, but these guys were racing really hard. Yeah, there is some contact, and they're across the nose. It looked like Adcock almost got damage from that as well. But I think it's just guys racing really hard. We'll go on board off the back end here. You're going to see a little touch as they go through 1 and 2 on the exit that pushes the 7 up into the wall. Right here, he has to lift out of the throttle. That's just a matter of that exit wasn't going to work out for the 7. He knew that. Unfortunately, if you're in the 17 shoes, you don't know that that's what he's about to do, right?
Yeah, a tough break there, and you don't really anticipate that at the exit of the corner. And turn 2, always a danger zone when you get a driver up into the outside wall and someone below you. That usually spells disaster, as there's Steven Stempien working his way by Kip Easley. That'll put the 13th place car of Easley 1 lap down here with about 6 laps left to go until the end of stage 1. Tough break for Progard in that 7 machine, because he had picked up his best finish of the season in his last start at the Indianapolis Oval back in mid-July of 2024 this year. So not the greatest ending to this one at Darlington. He will be able to continue, albeit several laps down, and may not be in contention for a solid running position at the end of this race. But I'd argue, Bradley, we may not even have more than 5 drivers on the lead lap, given the way this race is going.
Yeah, they're spread really far apart here. Colin Forrester, 26 seconds back from the leader. He'll be the next one. He's going through 3 and 4. I think they're going to run out of laps here before the 88 of Stempien can catch up to him, but there's going to be a lot of wave arounds and a lot of guys that are going to have to play a different strategy if they want a chance back on this lead lap. Over half the field now, 1 lap down. Steve Stempien came prepared today.
He did. He did his homework, and he is knocking them off one by one to put them all a lap down or more. Watch turn 1. There's the battle for 2nd place. Alex Muscarella on the high side. Brandon Banks trying to cut down low, to no avail there in the middle of 1 and 2. Can't do it with the momentum you have to carry through that corner. And look who's in the background. Joe Sanchez, Austin Reedy, 4-car grouping from 2nd back to 5th.
This is impressive that Reedy has been able to do that. We might have been talking about a different leader based off the speed we're seeing from this 96. I think he can go up there and compete with Steve Stempien. And with this stage break for stage number 1, that puts the 96 in really good position to go up there and challenge the 88. We haven't seen it yet today. Only a couple drivers have even led some laps. But here he goes for the pass for 4th position. Joe Sanchez just going to let him by on the entry of the corner. Brandon Banks the next one. And he's still working on Alex Muscarella. This is 2nd through 5th position. all on top of each other in the closing laps.
Austin Reedy is in his stride in the waning laps of stage 1, and there may be still some battling left to go. A lap car up the road in Casey Knighton. The onboard look from the rear end of the Alex Muscarella Chevrolet Camaro rises high out of 2. There's the touch at the outside wall. Banks down low for second. Reedy is looming dangerously in the background like the Miami Heat on that one Bleacher Report post from a couple years back. Banks down low again. Can he get the bread this time out of 4?
He's loose.
No, he can't. He's loose. Split the lap car almost 3 wide, but he backs out, and here comes Reedy.
Somebody's going to pass Alex Muscarella before this thing's over with. They're going to try.
And here comes Reedy, final lap in stage 1, surely in the hands of Steven Stempien. But here comes Reedy, one last charge in 3 and 4. Can he get it this time? He's rolling high. Muscarella will play the defense and keep that wall solid for a moment. Reedy, this run out of 4. Battle for second. Give it to Muscarella at the line. Stage 1 complete here from Darlington. Wonderful racing for the spots back behind this man right here. Stempien in dominant fashion, winning stage number 1, and that'll be his... I was going to say a number there, but Stempien adding another stage win to the season.
I want to say it's like his 7th or 8th stage this season. Might be throwing out the wrong number, but he's, been dominant so far. No reason he can't go win stage number 2. However, Austin Reedy has impressed me with his ability to get through this field. And if you're Steve Stempien, you don't want to give up just yet. You still got a lot of racing left to do. There's plenty of opportunities for these guys to get by. Putting half the field a lap down, that helps tremendously, but Austin Reedy, ask Alex Muscarella, there's quite a few guys back there that definitely going to have a chance.
We'll go in the memory bank. On our last race before this one at Dover Motor Speedway, Stempien had been dominant until Lawson Peel stepped into the foreground, made it a proper fight. Stempien had to hold Peel off to get that victory at the Monster Mile. Will we see the same go down, but this time with a different cast, with Austin Reedy trying to get his way into the top 2 and potentially create another lead change. He enters pit road along with everyone else behind the race leader. Straight up dominance by Stempien over the course of the night so far. He's been the driver undisputedly the best. With 18 cars, now about 19 on the lead lap. We're going to get some more with that wave around. Several drivers getting their calls in. Jacks are down. There is one car leaving already midway through pit road before the moment. Give it to Steven Stempien, clearing away the best driver off of pit road. Look at this battle for second. 3-way tie. Did Brandon Banks nose ahead? No, Muscarella did. Wow.
That was really tight there off of pit road. I don't know if I have a good camera angle of this or not, but we're going to try to back it up and see if we can get a better look at this. Oh, well, maybe.
Photo finish, though.
That almost looked like the 54 had it. I don't know if it was... We'll have to wait and see. That's really, really close there, Kenneth, but I don't know.
Well, Banks gets the better launch. I think it's at the line where Muscarella has
Right
him
there.
beat barely. By the time Banks noses ahead, they've already crossed that line, and they gave that position to Alex Muscarella, who will roll off outside of row number 1 on the next restart. As stage 1 is complete, Steven Stempien leading the way. More Sunoco Cup Series action on the other side here on VSPEED.
What got into you? At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
Fuller,
Yeah,
needed F-150 for Smith build.
got it.
Yesterday.
I know.
Don't forget my BMW.
Gotcha. Check this out. All the major online automotive sites in one place. BMW, done. F-150, done.
How's he do it?
I can search nationwide, even those classified sites. Auto Tempest, all the cars, one search. That's how I do it.
Welcome back to Darlington Raceway. Steven Stempien and Alex Muscarella set to lead the way at the beginning of Stage 2 coverage here on VSPEED. Bradley Cooper, our producer, alongside myself, Kenneth Bueno. This has been the Steven Stempien Show up until now. Does that change anytime soon? Two of the Chevrolets for dropping the hammer racing on the front row after the first stage. Now the second Stempien, the driver at the exit of turn 2, leading the way ahead of Muscarella, Banks, Reedy, and Sanchez. Some wiggles at the exit of turn 2, but everything routine. We saw Reedy right at the end of the first stage with Alex Muscarella. A bit more work to do here at the exit of turn 4 as Banks makes the run for it. Car sideways behind. And it's spinning. Kip easily.
We're having some technical issues here with the microphone. I believe Discord's having some technical issues. The connection seems to be okay here on the iRacing portion of things. But Kenneth, you got a copy now? I know that there's a little cutoff there for a moment.
I believe I do. We are under the yellow flag for the second time tonight for on-track incident. The first one on lap 1, the second on lap 96. This one comes with Kip Easley and Justin Winters involved in the packaging. This is at the exit of turn 4, fighting right behind Ray Rogers. This is around the 14th spot that they're going at it for. Easley in that Casey Mears 2008 Kellogg's CarQuest throwback. And then Justin Winters, like we mentioned, in that Scott Bloomquist 2011 throwback. They make the slight contact, Bradley, at the exit of turn 4, but that is well more than enough to get that 8-car sideways, getting Justin Hendry a tag along in the mix. 3-car incident technically. Here's a look on board with Winters. What brings out the second yellow for an on-track caution?
It's just running out of real estate there. There wasn't much more room for Winters to go, and he got put up into the wall there just on the exit. Easley, who I believe got the lucky pass there during that stage, but you go back one more time here. This is just an exit at Darlington. That's what it is.
And it's a very narrow one.
It looks like the 22 might have came down on the side of him.
And again, you're looking at millimeter accurate placement when you're going side by side. But with the fact that this racing groove is so narrow, especially when you're rising off the corner, you're on full throttle. I mean, that slight contact is enough to bobble the 8-car to go sideways, and as Easley rises up to the outside wall. Here's a look from the black and blue and white machine, the number 1 of Justin Hendry, as he was moving his way past. Not really much that he can do as he was going underneath. Just makes the slight contact with Easley to send him fully on the spin. Luckily for everyone else, they have escaped the calamity, and for those involved, not as much damage as you'd think, given the fact that that incident happened at about 150 miles an hour at the exit of 4. Hendry and Winters, though, are going to reassure themselves with an entry down pit road. They will be joined by some others. I'm curious to see, though, Bradley, whether these 3, you know, apart from damage repair and the other routine maintenance they have to do to keep themselves up to snuff, if they are going to elect for either a splash of fuel that'll give them some sort of an advantage, or maybe some tires to burn off one of those 8 sets you have available from the start of the race, and possibly create an alternate strategy here in stage 2.
Yeah, I think I would just top off with fuel. Tires, like you said, are at a premium here with the old surface. A few of them are electing to take the jacks up here. This could be one of those advantageous things, though, being deeper in the field, that you could afford to maybe use one of these tire sets just to get some track position. We've seen how difficult it is just to stay on the lead lap here, so this could be kind of a game changer with the yellow. Kind of have nothing to lose, so we'll have to wait and see. But there's one of the guys that's still outside looking in, has the speed, just that penalty, hasn't been able to recover from it just yet. That's Logan Sturgeon. He's still 3 laps down. Hopefully he can get back into this thing. One of these cautions, you know, it could put it back on the lead lap if we continue to get yellow flags. We'll have to wait and see, though. It's still, what, 13 cars 14 cars that are a lap down or more.
Yeah, and Sturgeon is 3 laps down, so he's going to need a ton to happen if he wants to get back on that lead lap. He's just now starting to remove that pit road speeding dagger that he accrued earlier in this race. We'll see if that Kellogg's machine can find a way to come back. And we're looking at the field doubling up now at the exit of turns 1 and 2. We were going to talk to Kip Easley. We'll see if we can get him on the line in just several moments, maybe when we get back to the green flag restart, whether we'll be able to talk to him or not. However, we are getting ready to restart this race at about lap 101 of 293. Just a quick reminder that the end of stage 2 clocks in at lap 180. So we still have a solid green flag run left to race before we can start talking strategy. Steven Stepien, Alex Muscarella, that's row 1. Brandon Banks and Austin Reedy back in row 2. Joe Sanchez inside the top 5 with Shane Wyatt on his outside. Then Justin Erb, Alex Huffman, Zach Wilson, and Ray Rogers. That's your current top 10 from Darlington, South Carolina. Pace car pivots down to the left and onto the apron. There's nothing but clean track ahead of Steven Stepien. He has all control to get this field back under full song at the entry of turn 1. Enter the Geico restart zone. Late jump from Stepien. We are back under green. That caught his teammate off guard. But is that enough to close off Brandon Banks? Answer is no, entering turn 1.
Banks peeks to the inside. Muscarella is going to hold on to second. Reedy's going to lose the spot here. We were talking about it there during that break. Do we think somebody has something for Stepien? And I think me and you both believe that Austin Reedy definitely has shown the speed. 27 into the wall there briefly. Shane Wyatt has a brief brush with it. These guys still trying to sort it out. Even deeper in this field, Kip Easley, who just came down pit road, they were 3 wide almost out of 4.
And he is side by side with, that was Chuck Stevens in the number 84 car, who is several laps down in 23rd. Easily gets on by, and remember that 8 car is still technically fighting for lucky dog position as long as he can get by both Curtis Kelly and Dakota Curtis. 15th and 14th on the racetrack. There is Curtis, a man we haven't talked about all night long, but the league owner, who started in 23rd, has moved up 9 spots since the drop of the green, and he's going to need that quick yellow flag to get back on the lead lap.
And he's got to hold on to this position. He has a couple guys behind him that are hungry for it. Remember the 71, the 17, they were all battling for this earlier. The battle went astray with Chris Progar. He is out of this race now. But Aaron Adcock, these guys still trying to hang on to a race that, you know, maybe got away from him in that first stage, but now we're approaching that second half of this race, and 400 miles is plenty of time. I'd have to say, though, Kip Easley showing the strength here.
Well, he took a 27-second pit stop. He pitted about 5 laps ago. Maybe could be prior to that yellow flag or around that moment, so he's got a good amount of speed behind him. He'll work on Sean Kalis, the next car up the road, but still about more than a second or so before he can catch up officially to Dakota Curtis in that number 43. Once again, that is for the lucky dog candidacy spot. If a yellow does come out, Curtis or Easley at this moment in the race will be fighting for that spot to get back on the lead lap, which is a premium given the man up front and how dominant he's been. He's already pulled away to the tune of 1.2 seconds. It's already been maybe 3 to 4 laps since the restart, Bradley. And this, again, strutting the stuff, domination from Stepien. And while Austin Reedy was surely fast at the end of stage 1, can't get the quick fire nature to get back going in the restarts here, and he's been just getting himself back underway, working now on Brandon Banks methodically, but not as fast as we thought he'd be from the catapult.
Yeah, and it's a little bit different. It's once you start to get your way up into this top 10, the frequency of you passing cars, 1, there's less cars to pass, and 2, the speed's a little bit higher. You saw the guys that were able to remain on the lead lap. But even so, Reedy's definitely been the long run car, and if you looked at the lap times, it looked like Reedy definitely was matching the speed of Stepien, so I wouldn't be too worried quite yet. However, there is still some traffic. There's some teammates, there's some guys that, you know, he's got to work around that maybe the situation could unfold for him here if he's able to get clear of Banks and Muscarella. Looks like he's going to follow him into turn 1 and try to pick one of those spots off.
He's got to tread the waters lightly because going side by side in turn 1 surely isn't a good sign for what's to come. It usually ends up in a crash, but luckily Banks escapes that in good fashion. We'll get the big run out of turn 2. Won't do anything with it, though. We'll back out on turn 3 and stay single file as the battle behind continues to work up. Justin Urban, the 20 car, really haven't talked about his Chevrolet for most of the night. He works in front of Alex Huffman. That's for 7th place on the track, but highest we've seen Herb running, at least in terms of the competition in front of him. Could make an effort here on Joe Sanchez, but again, all single file running in that dirty air. So tough to make a difference, especially in 1 and 2 where you're carrying the throttle through most of it. And now here's Alex Huffman diving on the inside for 7th place.
Yeah, it's really tough with the dirty air, and it's also really easy to follow a guy. You'll start following his line and then end up hitting the wall the same way he did, and we almost saw that. They all were wall riding through 1 and 2. Here's some side-by-side. Muscarella tags the wall there in between 1 and 2, chops the nose of the 54, and Banks has to back out of the throttle. And there was exactly what I was talking about. All 4 of the cars behind this battle, they all had a brief brush with the wall. They followed each other's lines up there.
And what we're seeing from Muscarella and Banks is quite interesting, and that's why you're seeing Banks attempt to pass over and over again and have it be all for naught. As he's getting these runs out of turn 4, his best part of the track is there to the front straightaway. That's where he gets the most momentum on Muscarella, and as soon as he pulls out for the pass, then turn 1 and 2 slightly becomes impossible to get around. This time a better exit off 2 is able to flush down low in 3 and 4, get the best of that 48 car, and it will reel in Austin Reedy and Shane Wyatt momentarily, but this is Banks' best chance at getting by to second. They touch doors once and twice at the exit of 4. Banks is there. Muscarella gives way. Brandon Banks bullying his way to P2.
Yeah, he timed it better that time. 1 and 2 is probably not the place you want to try to pass, but if you can get a good run out of 2 and get him into 3 and 4, that was your better exit to begin with. Now it looks like Muscarella fading a little bit more as Austin Reedy turns up the heat. Battle for 3rd spot. Muscarella holding it on the outside. He's able to prevail, but he's under attack repeatedly here. The 48 car has been up in the top 3 most of the day, but he hasn't had to contend with the 96, the 27. Grouping these guys back up, he's got the pressure on as he gets loose out of 2.
And there's the touch from behind by Reedy. He's saying, let's go. We can't stay put any longer if we want any chance of catching Stempy. He'll dive underneath. The lunge may work in his favor. That's muscling his way through 3rd place. Austin Reedy getting by. Next up is Banks if he can get there. And the gap only continues to grow between Banks in 2nd. And there's the race leader about 2 seconds up the road. So with every passing lap, Bradley, it is only going to get tougher for Austin Reedy if he wants to try and catch up to Stempian at this juncture of the race. We know that Reedy is usually the better long-run car, as we've taken notes of, especially in stage 1, but how much is too much when you're talking about gaps here?
I would say probably anything over 4 or 5 seconds would be, because I mean at that point, even when we cycle pit road, you're not going to make that amount of time up here with your entry. I've seen a lot of guys be really conservative, but if Stempian's getting around this place on the race line, he's probably practiced his pit road entry to mitigate any kind of loss that he would have, and so you're only going to shave maybe half a second or so, and that's being brave. You probably would want to be a little conservative to not lose all that ground. We saw it with Sturgeon. He made a mistake and got speeding on the entry, so it's probably easier to make a mistake and lose all this ground versus just kind of biding your time. I see Banks, Reedy, they're pulling away. They seem to be a little bit faster this stint of the race. So that gives me faith that they'll keep Stempian within 2 seconds before pit stops.
Certainly more comfortable. Banks and Reedy are running where they are, and they can get away from Muscarella, Wyatt, Sanchez, the group that's building for position. 4th on back, and here is the rookie unleashing the pass attempt on Muscarella. He will do it in 1. He'll shut off the door there of the 48, at least shut off the nose there, and almost makes a bit of contact there at the exit of turn 1, but Wyatt is able to force his way through regardless. Muscarella will hang back and see if he can do something while Sanchez tries to unleash a pass. And for Muscarella on the back foot here, trying to play the defense, and now on the fellow Jimmy Johnson throwback machine, this is completely backed up everyone in this group all the way back to Colin Forrester in 12th. This may be the closest, Bradley, that we've seen the entirety of the mid-pack be all race long, and every one of these guys a fair chance to get around should you find some mistakes.
Well, they saw what happened in the first stage of this race. Half the field went a lap down, so they got to run away as far as they can. The last car on the lead lap is Casey Knighton, and he has about 5 seconds rather. And then it's 23 seconds back here to Kip Easley. So it's a massive gap to these guys that have been struggling. And then you got the lucky pass position. Kip Easley was able to get around Dakota Curtis, and he's put about a 2-second gap on him. But this field has spread out so much now that the likelihood of, well, I said that, and then here we go with Zach Wilson, everybody grouped up. Looks like the 48 of Muscarella is really locking up this field mid-pack.
And he's slowing down with every passing trip around. Darlington, there's Justin Erb down low, and the freight train only continues. It'll last for about 3 more cars. That's it. Muscarella can't hold the fort down and play all this defense to not let everyone by. It seems as though he has stayed put where he's at, so he'll settle in 9th place. Zach Wilson will move up to 8th. And boy, what a fall off that was from Muscarella. He just wants to plateau where he's at, and, or maybe improve as this long run pushes forward. The look on board from the rear end of the 54, way loose out of the final corner. Another opportunity here for Reedy to seize, but again, backing out before the entry of turns 1 and 2. And unlike a lot of other tracks, Bradley, on the schedule, especially on the oval side, you're looking at tracks where you can pass in the corners and make it midway through the corner and get by another car without a problem. But here at Darlington, just because it's so tough to pass, you're often setting up your passes and completing them on the straightaways. You'd imagine that's what's at stake here for Brandon Banks and Austin Reedy, is making the move happen on the straightaway, hence why Reedy is just hanging back even when he gets a big run.
Well, you have to premeditate every single pass here. Is it worth going to the inside? I think the opportunities on this racetrack present themselves a lot because guys get tight or maybe get loose out of the exits. We saw it with the 54 there just a second ago. It's just whether or not you're willing to gamble it, as Reedy finally does get by. He planned that meticulously. He had already caught up to him, but, you know, make sure that that guy in front of you is stable, that you're going to be able to get by cleanly. And that's what you have to do lap after lap. Stay focused. You know, that is a car that, you know, could be a factor on the exit. So, well planned. Reedy's done it 20 plus times here today. So, 23 positions gained. I think he knows how to get to the inside and plan his pass.
And Reedy checks off this box with 2.5 seconds separating himself and the race leader. So I'd say not too shabby for Reedy. He can still pick up a ton of time from here on to the end of this run. And good news for Reedy, last time by, he was the fastest car in the top 5, 30.529. Stempien clocked in at 30.637. So this may be the start of the showdown between Reedy and Stempien. We talked about it at Dover, to where Stempien had to find a challenger, and in that one he found Lawson Peel. Will Austin Reedy be that new challenger tonight here at the track? Too tough to tame, and will that result in our first proper lead change of the race? On track, another potential 10th ripped off of the advantage. It's 2.3 seconds between the top two.
That continues to dwindle down. We saw that 30.7 versus Austin Reedy at 30.6. We'll have to wait and see. Stempien could be a little bit in conservation mode here as we approach that 34. This is just over the halfway mark on green flag pit stops. So Stempien might be bottling up some of that potential energy in that car. I mean, he has a comfortable lead, no traffic in front of him. He really has no reason to push things, and he might allow Austin to catch up to him, reel him in a little bit, and that's when he'll turn it back on. He'll say, okay, this is where I'm going to start driving again. We see a lot of guys do this, where they hypnotize you to make you think that you're catching up to them, and then they turn it back on.
That's a great point too as well. And for Steven as he works through this run, at about 35 laps and counting, you are maybe 10 laps away from pit road stops occurring pretty soon. We had Jesse Whittington be the first car to pit on the lead lap at around, give or take, lap 42 to lap 45. It was around that window where most of these guys made their efforts down pit road. You'd imagine that Stepien isn't pushing on too hard. He knows a cycle will come around, and a cycle that surely Stepien is confident he will win at and he will get first place at once again when everything goes through and all is said and done. So, you know, maybe just weighing off on what could be for this 88 machine, who's already led 125 laps tonight. That already beats the 100 that he led back in Season 5, a race where he was able to capture the victory. Now, give or take, of course, that Season 5 race was a little shorter, but for Stepien, certainly one of the greatest races he's putting up right now, and just picking off from Dover Motor Speedway not that long ago.
When you said that average earlier, so this is kind of the asterisk where we're racing the full length of these races, so that average definitely would come up. But Stepien's definitely the guy that's bringing it up this week, and he's led all but 3 laps. That's just dominant performance so far, and I'm still waiting to see, though, because Austin Reedy last time by was a little bit slower, but he has kept him in check. Within that 2-second mark, he is definitely got the pace. Stepien really hasn't shown that he's, you know, that much quicker in the long run. So that's what I'm worried about as we work our way towards that. We're kind of getting the last 20 laps of that stint where I think you're going to see Reedy probably within 2 seconds before they hit pit road.
And then you look at the conversation of what happens down pit road and which of them come in at what point in this race. Does Austin Reedy decide to shortcut? Is that his only option of making it out to the top spot? Or is there an overcut position in hand that Reedy could leverage to his benefit? We'll just have to figure that out, and that will happen in about, I think, give or take 6 to 7 laps time. That's where we had most of the field enter pit road on our last green flag stint that happened in stage 1. And here's Alex Muscarella just struggling continuously. He may lose 9th and even 10th, almost 3 wide, entering turn 1, or turn 3 rather. Jesse Whittington and Justin Erb going flashing by. And Muscarella drops 2 in the span of an entry of a corner.
I was just about to mention that it looked like maybe he had settled out. Remember, he restarted up here in the top 3 and lost 1, 2, 3 spots all within a lap. Now he's lost 2 more. He's outside of the top 10. I'm not sure what's going on. The 48 does have a little bit of damage on the right front. You can see there. Just maybe 1 too many Darlington Stripes on the 48 to get him all that speed down the straightaway.
Well, I remember one of the onboard camera looks we had facing Muscarella earlier in this run. You could see the flattened out right front of his low Chevrolet Camaro. You question how much that will affect him aerodynamically, and you know the answer could be very largely, especially when you're looking at these straightaways and the way you have to enter these corners. Muscarella has dropped off to 31.326 on the timing sheet, and that is several tenths slower than many of those who are running laps in front of him. He was about 3 tenths slower than Whittington and Erb. You're right, listen in on the 48 and hear this lap. So not only is it a lack of pace from just the restart jitters, but fuel saving for Muscarella here.
And he might be working a strategy knowing that, you know, he's lost all this ground with the damage, so he might be on one of those stretch the run as far as I can and have 5 or 6 laps advantage on tires, as we see. I believe that was Jesse Whittington coming down pit road.
Whittington getting that trademark witty pity on the iRacing voice chat, or rather the text chat, just letting everyone know that he enters pit road. This is similar to his stage 1 strategy. He was one of those first in the top 10 to click down pit road, and usually that is the signal for everyone else to start making their decisions. We'll look closely at those at the back half of this top 10. We know Zach Wilson was one of those drivers who went in several laps after Whittington did in that first stage. Keep tabs with Wilson as he battles with Erb. That is for 8th place on the racetrack, and they have fallen back from the group of 4 that rolls right in front of him.
I'm checking out the chat here. Everybody seeing that the 88 is in the zone. Yeah, he's in another time zone right now. He's pulled it out 2.8 seconds. So this is kind of that warning sign, that window of like, well, is Reedy going to be able to catch up to him? We're approaching pit stops, and Reedy hasn't shown that long run speed like he did last time. As you see this time by, it just glimpsed over 3 seconds. I'm starting to worry, Kenneth. I mean, I'm not worried for Stympian, but I am worried for a possible lead change with the dominance that the 88 is. He just continues to pull away.
It could happen, it could not, but Reedy will have to pull something out of the bag if he really does want this race lead, and if he will execute in the right way. There's Shane White, who pitted from the top 5 in his Ryan Newman paint scheme. What a night he's been having so far from Darlington. 1-2, remember, and as Wyatt wants to make his first Sunoco Cup Series playoffs in the last ever season of this series, he's definitely making an impression late in this regular campaign. There's Kip Easley in his Casey Mears throwback, slowing down. He enters pit road without a hitch. Glad to report no pit road penalties this time around. Justin Winters also in as well. He sits in 20th place.
So there's a lot of these guys that are crapped a lap down right now. They can't, because of the way this caution fell and everything happened. I saw some guys that came down and topped off with fuel, but they're still kind of pitting early, and so that's confusing to me. I thought maybe they were going to try to work this to their advantage, but a lot of these guys had already came in and topped off. I thought they would go further on this stint.
It looks like they wanted to be a little safe there on this entry to pit road. They want to cycle out in a more comfortable position, and something you have to leverage, especially with the distance you have to cover to catch a ton of the competition. Look at this already between the leaders. It's 3 seconds, but then it's another maybe 4 or so seconds there to Brandon Banks, then half a second to Alex Huffman, then another second to Joe Sanchez, and it crunches up at the latter portion of the top 10. But for most of this field, they're separated by a ton of time, so you really have to figure out the right way, the right place to enter pit road, even if you had a splash of fuel that can go a little longer than the most of the field can. Here's Colin Forster, the Jacksonville, Florida native, onto pit road. Las Vegas winner from earlier this season making his entry, and here are several more. Joe Sanchez, Zach Wilson pitting from the top 10.
So yeah, it's like you said, the start of this pit cycle with Jesse Whittington coming in, it kind of signaled everybody else, well, we don't want to be behind on the pit stop. That's a lot of ground made up. 94 is going to gain a couple positions out of this, but now we're talking about 5-lap difference, and the leader's still out there on the racetrack. Stympian's going to have a big advantage. Austin Reedy's coming down now, so this is a bit of a short pit. You know, that stage break at 180, it's going to be right there on the money here for when Reedy was fast the last time, late in the run, but he's still yet to prove that Steve Stympian can be reeled in. He comes by for lap 143.
Stympian is real dangerous right now, yet to enter pit road. I really am curious to see, Bradley, what the discrepancy is going to be like for Austin Reedy. If Stympian understands that Reedy was catching up, and maybe we'll start to create more of an overcut just so he can get the better advantage, but we'll see though. We know how much tires matter here at this track, so even 1 lap or 2 could make a monumental difference. There's Casey Knighton, who started 28th tonight. Solid progression through the field. Up, what was 17 as he was in 11th, but now up 14, now up 13 since the drop of the green flag. It forever changes with his exit on pit road, but still a great night so far. Running in the mid-pack is Knighton. There's Reedy flowing back in with the racing groove. There's Brandon Banks, who enters pit road this time from 2nd place. And once again, another lap that we're seeing Stympian remain out on the racetrack. I believe I heard clutching and coasting from Stympian several times over the last several laps. Cannot guarantee it, but we know that he's trying to stretch it a little longer than usual.
He's not going to do it this time by, but he is running in 4th gear, and so that's interesting in itself. He hasn't hit 5th gear through the front stretch. Usually guys will... He's going to let Kip easily go by here. Maybe he is coming in this time.
And there he goes down to the apron under that Cookout logo. It's a tough entry, a bumpy one to pit road, but no problem. At least close enough to the pit road attenuator barrels. That is as close as it gets for the race leader. Sigh of relief as he's on pit road this time.
It didn't even look like it fazed him, Kenneth. He didn't show any emotion on that whatsoever. It just was another day.
I guess that's just pushing the limits, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'll go back and watch it on a replay real quick. It was a lot closer from our angle.
So this is the entry to pit road. I was worried about a lockup. It's close, though.
more time from the blimp camera. I think this is as close as it gets.
Stepien, as a result, drops to third. Justin Erb and Alex Muscarella will take over first and second. There's the closeness. Oh, well, that's maybe 3 to 4 feet.
Yeah,
I'd say that's too close for comfort if that's me on the racetrack, but for Steven Stepien, that seems to be light work, no reaction. He merges back in third. Austin Reedy is merging out of turn 2, so this is the battle for the net race lead. Reedy is catching up. He fills the outside, and he gets the position made. He'll touch the outside wall, though, and there's Justin Erb up the road as Alex Muscarella stays on the racetrack. This is to unlap themselves. Drama for the battle for the race lead. And he's into the wall. Austin Reedy getting the touch in turn 1.
Did he get a touch, or was that net code? That was a big snap to the outside wall.
Well, it's trouble for Reedy nonetheless. How much damage is assessed to that 96 car as he gets around Justin Erb to unlap himself? There's the replay. Reedy had the advantage, and he gets into the wall off of 4 to start. It evens him out with Stepien. The battle for the net race lead decided
net code.
right there.
That's a lot of net code there. We'll go on board. Look at the gap between these cars. That's unfortunate. That's just probably a product of, you know, he's always in a different location, and the connection's not always stable for him. And it could have just been one of those, a little bit of extra ping, a little throughput that maybe the iRacing server wasn't quite showing where his position was on the racetrack. And with the clutching and coasting, though, Alex Muscarella is going to find himself in the lead. He's going to get a couple lead. Justin Erb is about 13 seconds behind him, so it's like on this side of the strategy, it's paying off for the 48, but Steve Stepien, he's going to pull away now. There's a lot of damage on the 96. That was a pretty hard lick to the wall.
Possible frustrations behind the wheel for sure. Reedy thought he had the lead secured until that moment. Then and there, touching the outside wall twice in about half a trank of length. And now Stepien up ahead by about 4 to 5 car lengths, give or take. Aaron Adcock, the lap car on the outside, letting them by, and Stepien has the will to run away. And you bring out that point with Alex Muscarella. I think he's just holding out hope for a yellow flag. If he can get the fresh tires, if a yellow does fly randomly at this point of the race, well, possibly could help Muscarella gain some well-needed track position, especially with what storied him at the last restart, where he fell back so far through the field and got himself into this clutching and coasting strategy. He is, though, losing time to Steven Stepien, so there will be a point of decision if you're Muscarella, whether to pit now or whether to stay out, holding out this hope, because if he does come down pit road a little later on in this race, well, it's only going to be Stepien's lead to get back, and Muscarella will have to deal with fighting his way through a mid-pack position. He will have fresh tires, but again, it is a tough road to try and make up.
And you can't knock a guy for trying. I think he was kind of committed to that strategy right out of the gate. Based on how much time and position he lost, that would add up in my mind that, yeah, he was probably in conservation mode from the very start of this stint to see how far he could stretch and maybe get on the flip side of a lucky caution. It just hasn't worked out for him. And Steve Stepien now 16 and a half. It's going to be probably another 2 seconds that he's going to make up here as they're going through 3 and 4. Austin Reedy back here. He's lost about a second since that contact, and the damage has not helped his cause at all. He's just waiting to get to this stage break so he can get some of this repaired.
Yeah, he really wants to get this done now, but unfortunately he will have to wait. There is, of course, a long race left to run, so it's not like everything is over if you're Austin Reedy. However, it is certainly a little heartbreaking to see the chance for the lead be diminished that quickly, especially with getting damage on the way there. There's Shane Wyatt brushing the outside wall. He's in the pursuit of Jesse Whittington, rather. That is in 4th place. And there's a lap car in the middle, Aaron Adcock, that 17 machine for Poman Motorsports. There's Will Schoonover in his Chase Elliott-inspired paint scheme, just coming out here in the blend line, turn 2, letting everyone by without a problem, and several others ducking down to either let some competition by or enter pit road, given their storyline, where the separation has taken over, and there are only 10 cars on the lead lap as it stands. There's Brandon Banks back in 7th. We looked at Zach Wilson in 8th. Joe Sanchez, who was running nicely in the top 5 at one point, he has dropped off to that 9th spot. And then 10th, Colin Forrester, the last man on the lead lap. So it is only getting harder to stay on the lead lap tonight.
This is impressive, though, that Muscarella, he stretched it out 65 laps on this stint. That is a long time, well over 20 laps compared to where everybody else started hitting pit road. So to commit to that right out of the gate and stretch this out as far as he has, I know he doesn't have an additional 40 laps left in the tank. That's what he's probably going to need to make it back down pit road, but still very impressed by what Muscarella has done, and he's getting some laps led. You know, at the end of the season or the end of the regular season, that could be the difference between one position, just getting that bonus point. So we talked about him at the beginning of the season where he had a lot of rough patches and just bad luck. It looks like that's turned around. He's now in a situation where he can lead laps, so that's good, but now it's kind of a situation where he might be digging a little bit of a hole here after hitting pit road. He probably will find himself a lap down.
But he's going to hope that the fresh tires will carry him all the way back to possible points-paying position. Muscarella goes into this race with 320 total points on the season, 13th in the playoff standings, so definitely a little more comfortable when it comes down to the competition that we discussed pre-race, with Jesse Whittington, Swavely, Easley, and Shoemaker only being separated by 10 points into tonight. Muscarella a little higher up on that list, and the likes of Zach Wilson and Curtis Kelly, even a bit of Ross Harlow there in 12th, who's unfortunately not racing tonight, which is a track that he certainly likes a lot, but unfortunately did not make the running order for this race. You know, Muscarella, it could be giving himself a favor by this alternate strategy, but maybe it's just him throwing his hand out the window and trying something, at least trying something differently than the rest of the field is concerned. He is now about 5.2 seconds ahead of Steven Stepien, but we know that 88 car is closing in the gap very rapidly. We know there is going to be at some point Muscarella will have to enter pit road. The answer is not yet, though. Stepien closing in now 4.5 seconds.
Well, the storyline, we just displayed the points there. Reedy winless this season, but has remained the leader for, I believe it's been 5 weeks now, maybe even 6. That little break there, we kind of forgot some of these statistics that we were hitting it repeatedly, but we're going to go back to back here on Sunday, so we should get refreshed and back into the groove. For as long as a break as we had, though, I'm really impressed. These guys, you know, have been known for long green flag runs. This has been a really clean Darlington race, all things considered. I mean, this track is notorious for drivers getting to that outside wall and just calamity behind them because guys check up so quickly they get stuck in the wall. So I'm really impressed by this league and what they've done here tonight.
You know, I want to tell you no commentary jinxes, please, but, you know, you're right. We've had a really clean race from Darlington tonight, and you could give credit to all of the drivers in this race. We know that there was a bit of chaos at the jump, took some drivers out of contention early, most notably Richard Swavely, who will have to work onwards to Daytona, look for one last chance at playoff eligibility. But even then, with everything that's gone down, we've had some solid strategy racing and just everyone working in their own way without causing that much trouble. Here's a look with Zach Wilson, who is in 8th place right now, desperately needing points to stay alive in the playoff fight. We know just how rough this season has been ever since Texas Motor Speedway, and we don't have to describe that story again. We've described it ad nauseum over the course of the campaign, but for Wilson, it's now about the pivot, how he turns around and gets these 2 regular season races done with and over with, and then he can move to Atlanta with a fresh mindset, understanding that he is a playoff driver and that he can go fight for a Sunoco Cup Series title. His story isn't written quite yet fully. We know he's writing it quite well right now, He'll have to stay ahead of Joe Sanchez, though, if he wants those 3 precious points for staying in the top 10 at the end of stage 2. Here's Justin Erb, who's fighting with lap car Chris Shoemaker. And Justin Erb, one of those 9th in the standings, so in a little bit of a better place. But for Shoemaker on the other end of it, he's the first car 1 lap down in 13th. We know that he will gain on Richard Swavely. He can gain on Kip Easley, who's several seconds behind him. But for Shoemaker, I mean, this will get really close, Bradley, if he stays this way with everyone around him heading into Daytona.
Shoemaker's got an advantage here on tires, so he should continue to pull away. Casey Knighton, though, is going to go a lap down, so that lucky pass position is now lost, and the 28 gets up into the wall a little bit there as he lets the leader, Stimpian, go by. Muscarella finally loses the position, but he's still out there. 74 laps. He's in the top 3. He's still on the clutch pedal. He is so committed to this run. I almost want to see if he can go 80 laps.
Can he? I don't know. It'll be really close.
Doubling up.
He's on 75 right now.
Yeah.
That is impressive.
Really stretching.
And this is going at 31.612 lap pace. Listen in, 5th gear with Muscarella, and this is prime time saving right here. Pure silence in the middle of the corner, and it's working for him. We know that the answer is coming up at some point. We just don't know when. However, the traffic behind him will have to tiptoe lightly around this 48. Jesse Whittington and Alex Huffman. That is for lead lap position. Huffman, who finished in 2nd in our last outing at Dover Motor Speedway, will look to capture another top 5. They both go by Muscarella without a hitch, and this fight for the last spot on the podium might be worth watching on board with Huffman.
He's got the run here. It's kind of like what we saw earlier with Reedy trying to get around the 94 of Whittington, and she's got to find the right place at the right time. Car in the wall back in the background, that was Shane Wyatt. Almost got checked, door checked there on the exit of 2, but yeah, with Huffman, it's just got to find that right position. It seems like out of turn 4 is the best spot. I don't think he's got it this time around.
Will not unleash the attempted pass, although he'll push Whittington a bit in the
him.
corner. He'll stuff him into the wall and get wiggled out in the meantime. That will open up the gap again. A risk taken for Huffman. Not getting rewarded on that side of things. He'll have to try one more time and hit the reset button.
How frustrating is it, Kenneth, where you catch up to a guy, you can practically read his name on the door, and one little check up there. And even though Jesse Whittington was the one that made the mistake in that corner, Huffman loses, what, almost 3-4 tenths on that lap.
And he does, and he drops off to 31.103 in comparison to Whittington's 30.795 as they're reaching back around to the Boeing backstretch. Big difference there. And remember, there's still competition behind them. About a second back there is Brandon Banks with Shane Wyatt, Zach Wilson, Alex Muscarella, Joe Sanchez. A pretty sizable group of cars that are starting to string together. Back to turn 1, and there's Wilson in his pursuit of what is 6th place here with about 8 laps to go in stage 1.
Oh, that's sideways for the 27 of Shane Wyatt. He's going to be under fire from Zach Wilson here very soon. These are the deciding moves for a position. You know, Wilson probably getting a little eager as we have less than 20 laps left. Sideways again for the 27, clips the wall. Looks like Wilson is going to get the 6th position. He's going to run it deep here into 1, slide up in front. Another spot gain for the 51.
The Lake Speed throwback is getting it on here into P6, and here comes the Jimmy Johnson throwback of Joe Sanchez, trying to peek underneath Wyatt, entering turn 3. The lunge attempt unsuccessful. He'll try and park into the middle of the corner just to be able to stay there, and he will. Door to door at the exit of turn 4.
There was just a slight little block there to mess with the line of Sanchez, but he took it even lower to get that pass, and you can kind of sense it here with Shane Wyatt. He knows that these are positions for points right now. He really couldn't stand to lose anymore. The only other car behind him is Alex Muscarella, who's been out there for 82 laps officially now. Now that we know what the actual fuel window is, Alex Muscarella showing us that you can go a lot further than we originally predicted. With all the fuels saved here by the 48 car, he might get a new sponsor. I don't know. EPA might favor this 48 after this one.
That is remarkable for Muscarella. Still out on the racetrack, and he could actually make it on fuel to the end of the second stage in about 5 laps time. Trouble for Jesse Whittington, falls back to 5th. We'll see if we can dial up the replay, but it was contact between himself and Alex Huffman at the exit of turn 4, and it got pretty nasty entering turn 1. Here's a look at exactly what happened with the Focus Fuel Chevrolet. A tap from behind by Huffman at the exit of 4 pretty much starts this thing off.
Well, there's
the
a block
catalyst
too.
for 3 wide entering turn 1.
There was a big block there on Huffman, and he knew he wasn't going to make it through that corner, so he put it down on the apron. I think he might have had a bad run out of turn 4 that caused all that.
And with that, it pushes Whittington behind Huffman, now behind Banks as they're deciding that decision, or that position rather.
Contact.
There's the contact off of 4. It woes them up. Here's Banks approaching the scene. Then Whittington goes down low to block off Huffman. They lunge into the corner, 3 wide, and Whittington has no choice but to hit the brakes. He will launch into those 2 up the racetrack if he kept the gas in it. So Whittington loses on that end. Brandon Banks, the big-time winner, +2. He's up to 3rd place with the final laps remaining in stage number 2 from Darlington Raceway. The gap between Stepien and Reedy sits nicely at about 4.2 seconds and counting. And despite the countless attempts for Reedy to catch up, it has been unfavorable for driver number 96. Stepien catches what will be the white flag in stage number 2, trying to sweep the stages here in South Carolina.
It looks like he's got this one locked up. We've got a gap of over 3 seconds. Reedy with that damage, just trying to get the stage. I mean, he held on to second, so that, that's impressive in itself, with especially the way that right front took a hit on the wall. But Steve Stepien, again, stretching out, showing that he has the long run, the short run, whatever run you want to throw at him. And for stage number 2, he will be the winner. Can he get the final one, the most important one?
The sweep of the stages. Stepien wins stage number 2. Austin Reedy comes home in 2nd. Brandon Banks crosses the line 3rd. Alex Huffman, Jesse Whittington, Zach Wilson, Joe Sanchez, Shane Wyatt, Justin Erb off of 4, and Colin Forrester should be the final driver in the top 10 as Alex Muscarella runs out of fuel on the final lap of the stage.
And that's going to take him out of contention for that top 10. It looks like Forrester is going to get it. That was really close. What we're talking about with Muscarella, 87 laps on the stretch. That's a lot of information, Kenneth, that I'd be taking if you're some of these guys that are outside the top 10. See how far you can take it.
Well, Muscarella learned his lesson, and he falls out of points territory. Steven Stepien picks up the iRacing official pace car. He wins stage number 2 from Darlington. Will bring in everyone onto pit road. Pretty consensus call to enter pit road at this area of the race. I believe, though, Brandon Banks is going to stay out this time.
That is interesting. Maybe it's just a ploy for a lap lead. I would have to think with 38 laps, he probably, I feel like he's going to have to come down pit road if he wants to stand any chance. This is going to put him on a weird strategy to these leaders.
Well, is that a second-guess decision, or is this confidence from Brandon Banks here that a quick yellow will arise right off the restart? We don't know, but the left side jacks are up on car number 88. Surely we'll have no competition at the exit of pit road. Austin Reedy will try and get out next, but he is spending a ridiculously long time on pit road. What has happened to Reedy? Is he just getting damage repair?
Damage. I think it's damage.
Well, he's going to lose a ton of track position here.
Yeah. I mean, he's proven that he can get some of these spots back, and this will be the longest stage of the race. However, I don't know if the track position versus how much damage and time he was losing is now you see Banks come down pit road. So he is going to give up the lead. Oh, I don't know. He really didn't get much of that damage repaired. I don't think that's going to be substantial enough to get back some of that speed. You can still see on the right side a lot of damage.
Well, it will be a tough one for Austin Reedy. He will have to gain all of that track position. He'll have to figure it all out as it moves forward. But Austin Reedy falling back. Steven Stepien winning both stages. And so far, the man to beat heading into the final stage of the evening. Stay tuned. Race number 12 of the Sunoco Cup Series season continues on the other side.
What got into you? At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
Fuller,
Yeah,
needed F-150 for Smith build.
got it.
Yesterday.
I know.
Don't forget my BMW.
Gotcha. Check this out. All the major online automotive sites in one place. BMW, done. F-150, done.
How's he do it?
I can search nationwide, even those classified sites. Auto Tempest, all the cars, one search. That's how I do it.
Two stages down, one more to go here in Darlington, South Carolina. We're happy that you're with us here on VSPEED. Bradley Cooper with Kenneth Bueno right here alongside for the action. And Steven Stepien, Zach Wilson lead us back to the green flag at lap 185 of 293. Austin Reedy further back in the mid-pack as he attempted to repair his damage on the last pit stop under yellow. Brandon Banks also came in after staying out the first lap. He's up into the top 5.
Oh,
Wiggles and a
Muscarella.
car sideways. Muscarella saves it on the back straightaway.
That was a close one. Are they going to give us a chance to go back on this replay or not? I don't know. Another car down the track.
And we'll keep it together. We stay green, and everyone single files out for the most part. We may have side-by-side action further through the mid-pack, and that seems to be okay, but Stepien, the man to beat still. As there's Casey Knighton brushing the outside wall, Adcock down low, and look all the way in the background, Austin Reedy trying to puncture his way into the top 10.
Now, we were talking about that during the break. I wasn't sure. I mean, is the damage repair worth the amount of time lost? He had to come down a closed pit road, so that means he has to start at the tail end of the longest line, and that means that every car that's in front of him right here as he gets around Adcock is not for position. So he's got a lot to work through before he's actually picking up spots. And this is kind of where, well, you're in the hornet's nest. There's the 48 of Alex Muscarella, who stayed out 80-plus laps on that last stint, and now he's kind of in the same boat. Was it worth doing that gamble? Was it worth the situation? Time will tell, but you know, the longest portion of this race, there's plenty of time to make it back up. I think that maybe this might be one of those holes that was dug a little too deep.
Well, Reedy still has time, that's for sure, but you're right, he still has a ton of traffic to get around and a lot of black cars, too, that he has to maneuver through if he even wants to give himself that shot at a Steven Stepien fight. We had one car at the inside of the apron in 3 and 4. They seem to gather it all up. There is Chuck Stevens running in 21st. Haven't talked much about him. One of the newer drivers in this 2024 Sunoco Cup Series campaign. Started back in 30th, and even with the attrition, he's been able to have one of the cleanest cars on the racetrack. Give credit where credit's due, as Charles Stevens has the great camera look on the bottom right of your screen. Look at that old school Sunoco logo. Pure throwback right there.
I like it. Sticker up on the wall. Just locked in, trying to stay focused. He's kept his car clean, like you said, and that's 90% of it here at the Sunoco Cup Series. Is just having a car that's left to finish with. That sometimes can be enough to get you a good points day. And if you continue those runs, you learn a lot. You're able to experience more on the racetrack with some of these guys that might be a little bit quicker than you. And well, track time. We say it with every league that we broadcast here on VSPEED. Track time is so important. And if you can't stay on the racetrack, it's hard to get it.
And you know, Bradley, it's a mental note that you can carry over from Dover, right? A track that's also really tough on drivers, and one that could add up in the attrition category like it has tonight in this specific race. You know, you can carry over that as long as you stay on the track, you give yourself a shot at a decent finish, just because, you know, everything will clean itself out over the course of the race, specifically one as long as this, where, you know, this series runs full length as opposed to maybe 150 or so laps like we've run in seasons past and so forth. You know, when you have 293 laps to run, you know, you're thinking about a long-term decision from lap 1 to the checkered flag, and with that, you really got to carry that idea of, if I stay on the track, I should be okay. Even if I'm not the outright fastest car on the racetrack, even some of the fastest drivers can still make those crucial mistakes that could take them out of the event. But look at this, Bradley, between first and second, only 0.4 of a second, and possibly closing. Zach Wilson is gaining some ground here early in the restart phase.
Yeah, he's looking pretty good. He was his highest second position earlier in the first stage of this race. Then he kind of fizzled out. So I'm interested to see if he learned anything from that last time he was up here, or if maybe, you know, he's going to go on the attack and try to take away the lead. 0.3 of a second now as it crossed for lap 194. And I have to say, I'm impressed by the back and forth here through the top 10, but Wilson is going to be one of those guys, again, that we talked about turning that season back to the right recipe. He's found it again. He's on the right track. Joe Sanchez, Justin Erb. Two different groups. So at the tail end of the front three, you've got Sanchez, and then at the beginning portion from fourth back to what looks like a lap down car in the 22. And then there's kind of a spread all the way through this field. It's spreading out really, really fast, actually.
Well, this is what happens when you only had about 10 cars on the lead lap at one point in this race, and several others who have unfortunately pulled themselves behind the wall. Bill Schoonover was one of those as of late. Sean Kalis also disconnected. Same deal with the 22 car of Justin Winters, who, if you were watching a little bit earlier, is bearing, or was bearing on his race car, the Scott Bloomquist 2011. 30 years of domination scheme, the famous dirt late model racer that unfortunately passed away in the last week or so. And Winters is unfortunately out of this race, so he will add to the DNF list that is pretty much grown to more than at least 5 or so cars at this part of the race, as we'll cross over lap 200 in several laps time. We look at Austin Reedy, who is still getting his way up through the field. He's only up to 9th, and he is about a 2 2/10 away from Shane Wyatt, and it took him forever to get around some lap traffic, and even then he still has a lap car in front in the form of Chuck Stevens. So I'd agree with you there, Bradley. I'm not sure if the call to spend all that time down pit road repairing this car was even worth it, because even with the damage, he was still quiet but still fast.
Yeah, he finished out that stage. He was able to hold on to second position. Now he had to pass all the lap down traffic, started the tail end of the longest line. Progressively, you know, just like this this race for him, I'm losing my voice. So we've seen Reedy recover, but I don't know. I feel like this is one of those situations that maybe if he just came back out on the racetrack, he could have probably salvaged a top 5 out of this.
Nonetheless, top 10 running position for Austin Reedy. going into this race once again as the points leader of the Sunoco Cup Series playoff grid, looking to enter the playoffs for another season. And there's the league owner, Dakota Curtis, as he puts around 2 laps down in 17th. Well, that was close. Casey Knighton having to duck out of the way, and here comes Alex Muscarella. They're going to sandwich this 43 car.
That almost got real bad real quick. Casey Knighton had to do some evasive maneuvers, and then Muscarella dodging the 28 after he made his move. Not quite sure what's going on with the 43, but he is way down on power, it looks like. And there goes Reeves to the inside.
Co-owners of the league going at it.
Yeah, there's something going on with the 43 for sure. He's just not got the exit speeds that the rest of this field has got right now. Even the 16 of Garrett Brown, who, you know, he got caught up in that first incident of the night. He's even showing that he's pulling away here. Down on power for, unfortunately for the 43 thus far. Dakota Curtis continuing to lose ground.
He's definitely a second off of some of the drivers in front. About 2 seconds off from the race leader, Steven Stepien, who just clocked in at 30 flat. And while Zach Wilson in second was just a tad faster, this time around it goes back to the favor of car number 88. Battle for the lead, though. Keep an eye on it. Still 0.2 of a second between these guys. It is surely not over, even though Joe Sanchez has fallen out a bit from the background and is starting to just watch onwards as the top 2 continue to lead this race. And as we look at some of the great throwback schemes we've got tonight, we looked at it again, and if you weren't watching earlier in this show, we'll refresh the memory. Joe Sanchez running the Jimmy Johnson 2006 Lowe's colors on his Camaro tonight. Zach Wilson with the 1994 Lake Speed car. Well, it was a Ford Thunderbird, and Steven Stepien running with Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s 2017 Exalta Flashpoint Chevrolet SS. There's the Ken Block throwback for Alex Huffman in the number 10 as he gets around. And that is Colin Forrester. That's not for on-track position, but Huffman is in 6th. And there's the Dale Jr. car in Steven Stepien. Now, we talk about Darlington, and we always bring up throwback paints. And this is a tradition obviously started in real life and in the sim, has branched out everywhere. It doesn't matter whether you're racing Darlington in a league, even if it's official, if it's a hosted race, you're going to bring out the throwback paint schemes whenever you can, right? It's a fun tradition to take part in. Bradley, I'll ask you this. If you were to pick one throwback to run right now, what would it be?
Let me find it here. I got to find it. Is it still out on the racetrack? I don't know if it is. I'm frustrated now. I'm a Terry Labonte guy. I've always liked the 5 car, but unfortunately, looks like Logan Sturgeon has taken an early exit to this race. Now, there was another one out there, but I think it was, not sure who that was. There's been a few out here that look very Hendrick-esque, and it's sometimes hard to depict if it's a 5 car, if it's the 48. Yeah, I would definitely go with a Terry Labonte throwback every day of the week. I think there's a Kellogg's one out here somewhere. I have to look.
There is. It is Kip Easley in the 8 car, but that is, I don't believe, a Terry Labonte paint scheme. I think this is Casey Mears. This is in the COT era, so this is later on where the 5 car was still going strong before they had a little break and then came back with Kyle Larson in the last several years. Still a gorgeous paint scheme, though, very bright, very easily noticeable on the racetrack, and really well done for Kip Easley here as he runs 13th right now, right in front of Chris Shoemaker, right behind Colin Forster. These guys are actually a little close together, Shoemaker and Easley, so maybe this is a battle that we'll watch for as the laps progress, but not a bad decision. But would you go with the more modern Terry Labonte paint scheme like Sturgeon, or would you go a little bit further back in time, go for those maybe mid-90s, late 90s Terry Labonte schemes?
Yeah, I think I would probably venture for the iconic Bristol race between Bill Sr. Yeah, that's the 5 car that I'm thinking of, the primarily yellow with the red and the green stripe. But yeah, it was one of those days where, you know, everyone was a Jeff Gordon fan, but I knew Terry, he had some wins left in him, and even at the tail end when he drove the 55, I believe it was, for Rick Hendrick, was able to put it up there in the top 10 a few times. Just an amazing career, and you know, not to be overshadowed by. There was a lot of really good drivers in NASCAR in that era. You know, some of the guys just starting out their careers, like Tony Stewart, Matt Kenseth, just, you know, the mecca, the epic parts of the Bristol racing that I got to see as a kid, and I want to go back to that. I really do. So it's cool to see the nostalgia and get to relive it a little bit here with the next gen car. As we got a position change, Joe Sanchez. It looks like Zach Wilson has lost a lot of ground here.
It looked like the firepower showed early in the run has fizzled out, so Wilson is dropped back to third, and it was a really easy pass made by Sanchez in the middle of 3 and 4. Not often do you see passes happen in the middle of the corner, but for Joe Sanchez, when he got around Wilson, it looked almost routine for a corner pass at Darlington. Sanchez able to move on by Wilson, I think struggling with the rear tires on his race car, and that's something that has bitten him several times in the last several weeks. Remember Dover, where he unfortunately had his car toasted at the end. That one, Indianapolis, where he burned off the rear tires and was so loosey-goosey all over the place to the point where he just took it to the inside pit wall and destroyed his race car, calling it a night. Well, caution flag is just raised as we're looking at the replay with Joe Sanchez, as there's Chris Shoemaker all torn up and Justin Hendry is involved.
Hendry's just trying to get this thing turned around, and it looked like the 28 of Casey Knight got into him. Maybe lost reverse on this. There he goes back into reverse, trying to find that gear to get this thing back, but he's going to end up losing a lap here as Stempion's going to go by on the outside.
And this was the three-way fight, by the way, for position inside the top 15. Remember, we were talking about Colin Forrester, Kip Easley, and Chris Shoemaker? Well, that is the origin of the crash. So here it is. Kip Easley looking underneath that Mac 29 throwback of Colin Forrester, throwing back to the mid-90s Bill Elliott days. Chris Shoemaker gets a run. He does not ignore it. He pushes Easley into the corner, but right about here is where the problem arises. They check up. The 4 car gets into Easley, ricochets him across the racetrack. They both go hard into the wall, and look who's there at the scene arrival, Austin Reedy.
And he doesn't need more damage. He's already struggled to try to repair what he had, and here he goes into turns 1 and 2. There's the checkup. Easily gets sideways into Shoemaker and just nowhere to go. Like the 48 almost got a piece of that as well.
Oh, but what a hit for Austin Reedy, and that will surely diminish his dreams of winning tonight's race. Another look this time from the higher angle, and it easily just backed up, trying to stay put with Forrester and make sure he didn't get into that 31 car. And in the moment, Shoemaker wasn't anticipating it, hops into the back end, and there's Justin Hendry unfortunately involved. Casey Knight arriving late to the scene, gets a piece of damage there on the front end of his Camry. And the points leader, Austin Reedy, tagged along in this most recent caution, our third for on-track incident. There is the result. Reedy on pit road. Maybe could fall a lap down.
Gonna be close here. I think we're gonna see some drivers come down. Alex Muscarella, he's caught up to the pace car here. I am a little bit confused here. I think Muscarella maybe was just trapped behind the pace car, doesn't have an open pit just yet.
Well, we'll see, but nonetheless, there are many others coming down pit road. There's Chris Shoemaker, who really needed points to move up into cut line position. Colin Forrester, who really didn't want that to happen around him, but he does get some fresh tires regardless. He'll put himself on a different strategy, and the several others that join him on the pit lane. Let's see if we can get a word with second place driver Zach Wilson for RTR Motorsports. And Zach, really strong run right before, you know, the run started to get a little longer and you and Joe Sanchez were going at it. But what have you taken note of over the course of this race? Because it seems like you've got a really fast car, but Stempien has been the man to beat so far.
Yeah, I think the only thing we've noticed is the 88 is super fast. But no, it's been a good race so far. You know, flirted with disaster a few times there and got into the wall, but are you really running Darlington as hard as you can if you're not up there against the wall? So hopefully we can have a good run here to the finish. You know, looks about like 79, 78 to go when we take the green here. So hopefully we'll have something for Stimpy here at the end. I felt like the first quarter to half a run, I can stay close to him, but he's just got that little bit of extra today. So just gonna hope for the best, and maybe he'll run into some bad luck.
The last several races really haven't been the best in terms of luck, and you've fallen back a little in the point standings. Does this run tonight up at this moment give you a little more confidence as to holding off those guys who want to take away the playoff spots from you?
Yeah, I mean, those past few races have just been me pushing too hard, not playing smart, letting guys go when I need to. You know, we've got to win, so we're locked in. So I was really pushing to try to get those playoff points from stages and other wins. So when we run a smart race like we did today, look at the position that we're in. So we're just going to try to maintain this all the way through the playoffs.
Really smart race, very consistent. We know that you've won here before. We'll see if you can do it again. Best of luck on the restart.
Appreciate it.
And Zach Wilson, driver of the number 51. He'll be on the inside of the front row with Steven Stempien controlling this restart once again. And Wilson was caught up to him in that last run on fresh tires, but can he get over the hump and make this a proper lead change? Pace car makes its way down. Lap 216 will be up next. Stempien, the man in control on the restart, gets everyone backed up on the chase for turn 1. Look at the side-by-side action for third. Wiggle from Justin Erb. Zach Wilson is sideways. Tagged and spun around on the back straightaway. Caution is out immediately. Several other cars were ducking and weaving to get around. And Zach Wilson is at mercy of the commentator's jinx as he falls back and gets spun around on the back straightaway. And he types it in the chat almost instantaneously. He knew it, and so did we.
I mean, that restart was bunched up. We can go back and watch. There was a little bit of a check up there on the inside row, and I don't know if it was tire spin. We had fresh tires on some of these cars. I don't know. Maybe caught off guard. I don't know exactly what happens here, but go back and watch it.
Well, this is fresh tires, cold tires in turn 2. This is the common restart. Stempien gets away like he's been doing all race long. He clears the rest of the field, and while Wilson gets this tap from Joe Sanchez behind, it doesn't seem like a problem. They go into 1 and 2, no problem in that case. But Bradley, this is where the unraveling unfolds, and there it is.
Yep, that's just a little wiggle on those cold tires, and maybe you got into a mode of where your marks were on tires that are warmed up, but, you know, you're right on the back bumper of Stempien here. You got people taking air off your spoiler. It's tough.
Winner of last year's Darlington race will have a lot more work cut out for him if he wants a win this time around. And in turn, he will drop to 9th place. Not the worst case scenario, Bradley, given the attrition we've seen tonight. So it's not like he'll drop like 30 positions and be all the way at the back of the field. But we know just how hard it is to gain track position at Darlington. So Wilson maybe will have a ton of effort still needed if he wants to get back up to 2nd place, in which Justin Erb will take over. Alex Huffman will find his way into 3rd. Joe Sanchez actually fell back there in that incident. He'll drop to 4th, as there is Austin Reedy almost falling a lap down, but basically teetering on the edge of getting lapped by the field. He is 13th, and boy, has this race turned sour for the TJ Team Camry.
It has. He's still in a weird spot here where he comes down pit road and gets some more of that damage repaired. Fortunately for him, though, you know, we've had the most cautions of any stint in this race, any stage in this race. It's all kind of came right here in stage number 3. So that does help him a little bit. But if he continues to have to come down pit road because he's starting deep in this field, the calamity has kind of happened right in front of him. He got more damage there on the caution just prior to that restart where the 51 of Wilson goes around. So if he has to keep coming back to keep getting damage repaired, that's going to hinder his ability to get any positions gained. He's going to always kind of be the last car on the lead lap.
And Reedy going into this race with 4 top 5s in the last 5 races, including 2 straight top 5 finishes, 2nd place at Indianapolis behind the winner Lawson Peel rather, and then 4th place finish at Dover. Now Reedy might have a poor finish just as this race is progressing. Again, still a long time left to decide things, and a lot more drivers could find themselves in trouble, but you really never know at this juncture of the race whether that will be the period to the sentence. And we're getting told now with the commentator's jinx on that last incident with Zach Wilson not to interview Steven Stepien. I think I'm going to err to the side of caution and not interview anyone probably for the rest of this race.
Yeah, we'll listen to you, chat. No problem. You know, we always try to not do that. For some reason, we have this mystical power. Kenneth, I don't know how we acquire it. I don't know if it's some kind of thing at birth,
I don't know,
or if it just, you know, comes with experience after a few years of doing this. But let's, you know, we'll speak positivity. We're going to go green flag from here on out. How about that?
Oh, well, that's a big call. I don't know if that'll be the case, but we'll see if that commentator's jinx or prediction leads up to a favorable result. Justin Erb now occupies 2nd. He'll be on the outside of row 1. Stepien switching lines over the last several restarts. He was on the high side last time by, rolling the inside this time around. Well, he's got Alex Huffman right behind him in row number 2. Back to the restart zone. Stepien up and away. Garrett Brown ducking out of the way to get everyone by on the inside lane, but Stepien clears on the entry to turn 1. Justin Erb forced his way in there while the side-by-side battle for 3rd ensues. Sanchez loose right on the outside of Alex Huffman. They get through, but they lose a ton of time. Sweeping down low, Brandon Banks looking for 4th place.
Thought we were going to go 3 wide there for a moment. 27 just behind it, uses the wall to his advantage. And now as we come by for lap 222, Stepien, more of the same, starting to pull away. But how about Justin Erb? He's hanging pretty close with him as he pulls away from 3rd place.
And the good news is he was able to clear away from Joe Sanchez and Alex Huffman, the biggest threats to his challenge at the race leader on the restart. But here comes Sanchez barreling through, catching up on the Boeing backstretch and getting his run now. Brandon Banks looking on the outside of Alex Huffman. And there's the rookie Shane Wyatt, not that far in the distance. Boy, he's kept himself nicely in the top 10. Always in the conversation, even when he may be flirting in the background. This Alltel machine or Alltel throwback is doing its best. Backing up in 1 and 2, a little higher off the corner. Pancakes the outside wall. And now here comes Brandon Banks charging in for 4th place. He'll back out before turn 3.
It was quite the move there by Banks down the backstretch. I thought he was going to gain something, but it looked like it's went a little stagnant since that move, and he's now lost a little ground to 4th place Alex Huffman. Tell you what, these rookies, they have been very strong here in the later half of the regular season. Huffman, Wyatt, I mean, they've been up here all day long. I'm impressed with these guys and what they're doing.
And talk about passing the torch from rookie to rookie. At the beginning of this season, we were non-stop about Eddie Smith for Poman Motorsports, and while he hasn't been able to make as many starts late in this regular season as we'd love to have him, you know, he was doing well as a rookie, and then just felt like he passed the torch on to Alex Huffman, who picked up his first career win at Talladega. Shane Wyatt, although he has not been able to get that top step of the podium yet, building momentum as of late as a yellow striped rookie driver. So big things to come for those 2 drivers if they can remain as they are. And with Alex Huffman locked into the playoffs and as good of a season as he's having this year, you know, Huffman could still be a prominent threat for the 2024 Sunoco Cup Series Championship. In his first season, there was a look on board with Zach Wilson, who went for the spin on the last restart. He is just getting his bearings together off of this restart this time by watching the door-to-door action between Wyatt and Banks, the fellow Chevrolets going at it. Banks will relinquish the spot, and Wilson now on the charge.
They showed that he can have top 3 speed back here, you know, 7th, 8th position. That's a little tougher to do. You're in that dirty air, so I'm sure right now he's frustrated because this is the final chance to get those positions. Didn't do quite as well as he wanted to in the stages, and now he would like to go up there and try to win a race, help solidify and recover all of the races he's had previously since Texas. And Steve Stympian about half a second ahead. Justin Erb, it's going to be a top 3 day for him as he holds on. He gets a little loose there out of 2. It looks like Sanchez is going to have the run down the backstretch.
Pulls out of line. Sanchez is there. He'll try and make this pass, hugging the dashed line at the bottom of the track. He'll force his nose down low, and he's got the space. But can he complete the pass? Will Alex Huffman have anything to say about this? Yes, he does. He'll help Sanchez at the entry to 1. He wants them to check each other up, but that is only letting Stympian run away. He is up by half a second and ballooning off turn 2. No changes for position this time.
Again, 206 laps led. When you lead over 2/3 of a race, oh, contact.
Oh, and
Erb
more
is
contact.
blocking.
Wiggling his Erb in turn 1.
Allowed Huffman on the outside for 3rd. I don't know if I like this. Contact, big hit to the wall, the 10, the 55. Oh, Huffman's
And
around.
there goes Sanchez around for the spin. Huffman the damage, and the yellow flies with 63 laps to go in the fight for 2nd place. Justin Erb was a bystander in all of that. He got hit several times, but the crescendo happens with Sanchez and Huffman. And there is the yellow flag once again.
We saw it. I said I didn't like it. Kenneth, I called it out, unfortunately. Another commentator's curse with the 10. That was a big hit to the wall. Looks like Brandon Banks got a piece of it. The 27 of Shane Wyatt. But the worst end of the deal here goes to the 55, I would have to say. And Huffman's got heavy right side damage. Just go on board with him. That was, you know, you're just pinned up on the outside and ball bounce. Wow.
Those are 2 tires coming off the ground there. And then the secondary hit. It almost appeared as if they were going to keep it collected, and it was going to result in no yellow flag for sure. And there wasn't even a yellow as Sanchez was almost perpendicular across the racetrack. So here's another look at it. And again, it's just rising off turn 2. Sanchez wearing out the right front as he rises up the hill, gets into Huffman. And, you know, Shane Wyatt, Brandon Banks, there's nowhere they can go. They're just playing hole in the wall at that point. And then the secondary tap from Huffman to Sanchez, whether that's from frustration or circumstance, I don't know. But regardless, it sends the Ally Chevrolet for the spin, the smoke billowing out of Sanchez's machine, and therefore the yellow flag flies with just about 63 laps remaining. That does push Zach Wilson into 2nd place, given the runoff pit road. So everything that he lost in the last restart or so gained back in the last 7 or so laps.
Well, let's not pull him back into the booth just yet.
No, we will not.
I tell
One
you,
thing
though,
we won't do is that.
That's a lot of recovery, though, and we talk about other tracks where you have a problem like that, but because we've had only 10 cars on the lead lap and we're progressively working more back onto the lead lap, that's going to kind of get worse and worse. If you have problems later and later, we continue to have yellows. Now the tail end of the field is going to be 17th place as we have Dustin Reeves, Alex Huffman down pit road. But some of these guys that have been kind of out of the race from the start are now getting their laps back, and they're in contention to compete for positions. I like where this is going. I would love to have more and more guys that have a chance to maybe get a top 10 here.
And you're right. Look at guys like Dustin Reeves on your screen in 15th place. Last car on the lead lap. Aaron Adcock, who is back on the lead lap in 15th place. Casey Knighton, who rolled off from 27th on the grid, is up 13 spots up to 14th now, and actually gaining some as some of those drivers in front are on pit road. So, yeah, you're right. Giving notice to those smaller drivers who haven't been out there in the spotlight as much in this race, but have the opportunity to now that some of the attrition is kicking in. Something to expect at a track like Darlington, but maybe not in the way we're seeing it tonight. There's Brandon Banks on pit road. We'll get a word with his teammate, Joe Sanchez. Try to dial up exactly what happened on that incident. Joe, you got a copy with us?
Yeah, I got a copy with us. I don't know, just 20 was pinching me down. I got a little loose, and I don't know if we were making contact down the front stretch or not, but I mean, didn't. I got tight there off of 2. Didn't mean to take the 10 out. I don't know what his deal is. I understand he's upset, but to be calling me ignorant, I guess he's never been in a racing deal at Darlington, but we'll try to get back up there. Like I said, did not want that to happen. Did not want to take my team out or anybody, but we'll see if we can get back up there. We still got, like, I think 60 laps to go.
Yeah, the good news is still a long way to go, and you don't even lose that much track position. You're still inside the top 10. So even after a setback like that, what do you keep in mind for the restart?
Watch out for the 10 car, because I think he's going to come after me for blood, so.
We'll see. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Joe, thank you for the time, and best of luck on the restart.
Thank you.
That's Joe Sanchez giving us a quick word. He will run in 9th place at the time of the restart. Zach Wilson back to 2nd place. Stempian once again electing the inside line on the restart. This will be lap 235 here from Darlington, South Carolina. Once again, a smooth start for the Dale Jr. throwback of Stempian. Leads the field into turn 1, but look at Shane Wyatt. He's there inside for 2nd.
Shane Wyatt just picked up a little bit of damage from that. It looks like we had a car get wiggly loose there through 1 and 2, and it causes a big stack up. That was Justin Erb.
He keeps it collected. Remember, he was in 2nd. Now has dropped back considerably. Everyone entering 3 and 4. Sideways is Moscarella. He'll try and hang on to it. He does, but he goes right back up the racetrack, and there's Erb with a T-hammer. And Moscarella somehow will not ignite the yellow flag. We're going to stay green.
I think Sanchez just helped him around a little bit there. Herb just nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. That car is completely locked down. But watch this through 3 and 4. I think the 55 maybe gets into the bumper of the 48 a little bit here.
A bit of help from the fellow Jimmy Johnson car. So sideways is Muscarella. Here's the attempt to save it, locking up the brakes, but there's nothing he can do from there on. A passenger as Justin Erb slams in, and still no yellow flag. We are continuously running under green as Muscarella is just trying his dearest to stay on the racetrack. Justin Erb has gotten onto pit road. His night may be completely over. Look at that toe link on the left front. Absolutely destroyed. And for Muscarella, he is just now getting onto pit road. What a tough break for those two who had their stories doing well up until this point. And now the race is basically done. And adding 2 more to the possible DNF list. Ray Rogers, Colin Forrester, 2 names we haven't talked about much. Battle for P4.
How about Ray Rogers? I believe he was a lap down for the first two stages of this race, or maybe especially in that 2nd stage. But now he's fighting for a possible podium. This goes to show you with these cautions, the attrition, all of the factors that have came into this. Should never quit. Never give up, Kenneth, because you never know how this race could turn around. It's a long one.
2 top 15s in the last 3 races for Ray Rogers, the Florida native and former series champion, and that's a product of staying on the racetrack at pretty difficult tracks to drive. The 9th place at Nashville Super Speedway, which ended in overtime, and then the 12th place finish at Dover Motor Speedway. So Rogers, you cannot count him out. And with all of this attrition, as long as he keeps himself on the racetrack, this could be a race to remember. He'll creep up on the rookie Shane Wyatt, maybe give him something to fight for. And the battle for the lead is closed in. Zach Wilson inching in on the race leader.
We talked to Wilson there. He said that Stempian's just, on another level. He's very fast. They figured out that he is the car to beat. And they're showing some speed here in the closing laps. 241 will be completed with across the stripe. And it's a breakaway of 2 cars.
And the question is for Wilson and Stempien, do you pit for the rest of this race if a yellow does not fly? And if that question is answered with a yes, does this mean that Wilson is just trying to gain all the track position and have that upper hand? You never know, but they're right on board with Stempien from 1 and 2. It's about a car length between the leaders, and this time around, Wilson with a sizable run. He's got the draft entering turn 3. He'll lunge it in the corner, trying to get through. He'll force Stempien down low and make him wash up high, but not phased. This Stempien stays up front.
Right on board with Wilson. He's keeping the pressure on, but we saw this a little bit earlier before the problems there with the commentator's curse. Wilson was really good for about 10, 15 laps, and then he fell back. So I'm interested to see if he's pushing this hard. Stempien's got the advantage of clean air. It's going to be really difficult to hang with him this long.
High stakes bidding for 3rd place. This auction still ongoing. Ray Rogers, Shane Wyatt. How about this door-to-door action for the last spot on the podium, and even more action behind? Colin Forrester, Jesse Whittington, and Austin Reedy back there through 7th place. This pack building up behind the door-to-door action. Rogers is way up tight. He might grab the outside wall. He does. And there goes Forrester down low, taking a bite out of P4.
Forrester, another one of those cars that was trapped a lot down at one point in this race, and he's held on to get the lucky pass position, get back on the lead lap. Even had, I think, 2 situations where he had to get a wave around and maybe some damage, and so he's kind of been all over this top 10 tonight. And now, when it matters most in the final stage of this race, finds himself in 4th and possibly a podium for the 31. He's been a guy that started out really hot as well and has went kind of quiet through the remainder of the regular season, so the podium would do him really well. Fast Banana has, they did really good at the plate track, and then it got kind of weird, got kind of quiet for these guys.
Yeah, Fast Banana has dropped off a little bit. Not to say that they have dropped off completely, but with how hot Colin Forster started off the year, the winner of Las Vegas, and at one point in the series, this season, he was the points leader. We weren't really talking much about Austin Reedy until the last several weeks, but for Forrester, started off strong. It's sort of dropped off a bit, not showing as much muscle as we thought he would, and in turn, you know, Fast Banana Racing in contention for the team standings championship, they've dropped off a good amount to Drinkin' Bros Racing, who have extended their points gap for the team championship at the year's end. So, you know, maybe some good news here for the likes of Forrester and Reedy representing that Fast Banana group in the midst of DBR. And there is big time damage on the back straightaway. Is that from...
I believe that's from the 17 of Aaron Adcock.
There
was parts down the backstretch of his car. Looks like he has a problem on his own here. Let's come out of 1 and 2 and see what happened.
Derivative Casey Knighton. Just checked up. He was going to hit the wall off turn 2. Look how high it was running up the racetrack, and Adcock gets into him. Look at the hard slam. Intense lick to the inside safer barrier. The suspension destroyed. Adcock has turned over to pit road, and surely his night is over. So another one added to the damage list. And look at that. So Adcock with big time damage takes him out.
That's that list keeps getting bigger and bigger. Alex Muscarella has added himself to that as well. You saw that spin there where Justin Erb got into him, and there was no yellow flag for that. There's been 2 incidents here on this run of 18 laps that guys have been below that race line, and iRacing just doesn't throw caution flags, even for debris. So you saw those parts on the back straightaway, but that doesn't count. You can't really run over debris in the service, and kind of thankful for that, to be honest. That doesn't happen.
You can run over debris, but it has to be
over
within a specific time frame of the piece coming off of another race car, right? So you're looking at, you know, bumper pieces on the inside of the racetrack that would disappear after about 6 to 10 seconds, maybe even less than that, those pieces will go bye-bye. You don't even see them anymore. They just clean themselves on the surface. So it's not like you can have that situation to where you'll have a flat tire from debris that stays on the racetrack like you do in real life. There's Alex Muscarella trying to putt around, but he is staying out there. He's going to go back down pit road. He about missed the pit entry. I don't think he has the steering completely straight on his number 48 Chevrolet. I think it was a test to see how much he could rotate the steering wheel and how drivable the race car is, but the answer is not quite 100%, so Muscarella will try again on pit road. There is lap car Chris Shoemaker again in that conversation for those at the bubble to make the playoffs this year. Shoemaker was back about 10 points from the cut line driver Jesse Whittington going into this race, and I'm sure staying in this one, even with this beat up race car in 14th, will get him some points ahead of Richard Swavely, but surely won't help against Kip Easley, who has kept his car remarkably clean, is inside the top 10. And
another car,
then, of course, Jesse
pieces.
Whittington that's Casey Neiden in trouble, I think. It is. He's down pit road as well. And it's the same trouble spot as Aaron Adcock. Watch this.
I think this time he kind of made the same mistake he made there with Aaron Adcock. He got into the wall, but this time...
And no yellow for this either.
Yeah.
He is under the racing line, and he parks it there. And still, iRacing Race Control does not throw the yellow flag. So another car taken out, and we will stay green. Unbelievable how this is all unfolding. And we're getting car by car with mistakes piling up and cars getting torn up as side by side for 4th place, Shane Wyatt, Jesse Whittington, turn 1.
Just wondering there, Shoemaker got out of the way just in time. He got it checked down to keep it below the apron, 27 into the wall, and that makes a evasive maneuver for Ray Rogers down to the bottom, back into the top 5. But it looks like late in this run, Ray Rogers is sideways in the 27's wall riding. We got the 94 around. This is gonna bring out a yellow.
This finally brings out the yellow flag, and Shane Wyatt gets the most damage we've seen him pick up all race long. Jesse Whittington for the spill. And the rookie might have to call it quits. Or may just have to call it quits for a top 10 this evening. As the yellow flies again after 2 big scares and a crescendo. Just erupted on the back straightaway. Started with this stack up. There's Rogers, Reedy, Whittington all in the line down low. And I think it's this stack up here. Rogers gets the back end of Whittington, sends him sideways, goes up into Shane Wyatt. And Whittington, in the attempt to save the race car, cannot grab it in enough time. Spins it around on the apron transition. Here's a look on board from Reedy.
And so, I gotta say that maybe a little bit loose there into the corner from the 94, but Ray Rogers kind of helped finish that car off. But then after that bounce off, it just 27 had nowhere to go there. He was just kind of an innocent bystander. I know he makes a mistake here out of 2, but at this point he's collected himself. He's back to normal, and I thought they were gonna get through it. With that touch right there. And I think Whittington's going to be okay. Oh, the 4 Shoemaker just barely missed him.
A ton of damage, though, for that 27 car. He'll spend all that time on the pit box getting that repaired. He may be the next driver to be a lap down. And at this moment, we've got 11 cars on the lead lap and only about 22 that are still on the racetrack. Run out of pit road, decisive, but look at Colin Forrester, 14.5 seconds, is able to beat Zach Wilson off pit road.
See that
beautiful
launch?
Stop for the 31.
Did you see that launch, Kenneth, out of the pit box? Watch this launch right here.
And barely any wheel spin as well. Gorgeous exit off the pit box for Colin Forrester, and this is a race-high 2nd place for the Jacksonville, Florida native and Las Vegas winner from earlier this season. a chance to make something happen and get win number 2 if he can beat Steven Stepien, but that is a tall ask as this race has gone under 40 laps to go, and telemetry tells us about 18 minutes left until we can call this race official from the virtual Darlington Raceway. I'd say that, Bradley, this may be the most attrition-filled race we've had all season, apart from some of the super speedways. Just a testament to how tough it is to race at this track and to race in the context of the regular season coming down to a close and trying to run as hard as you possibly can.
Yeah, this is even more attrition than we had at Sonoma. And those tracks, road courses, notorious for sending guys through the sand trap or maybe getting damage, surprise, cars with damage that can't do anything about it. There's no caution flags at the road courses, so I'm based off the way this race started, I thought for sure we'd have at least 25, 30 cars left. I don't know. It kind of took a turn for the worst here in this final stage.
Rearing its ugly head, but we are still putting through this. And we're going to be at about 33 laps to go at the cross of the start-finish line. We'll see if we get the 1 to green signal from the iRacing official pace car. But for now, we'll stay under the control of Steven Stepien, who remains in the lead of this race. Boy, it's been an impressive and dominant run for the Massachusetts driver, who will pick up the pace car, get everybody double filed, and we'll get back under green flag circumstances. Colin Forster searching for his best finish of the season since P6 at Nashville Superspeedway. That race, by the way, went into several overtime attempts, and Forster was watching his Fast Banana teammate Curtis Kelly grab his first win of the season. Well, Forster wants to pick up after a 25th place outing at Dover Motor Speedway and a 33rd place run at Indianapolis Motor Speedway that was cut short. Steven Stepien, the leader. Colin Forster outside row 1. Then Zach Wilson, Joe Sanchez 3rd and 4th. Austin Reedy back inside the top 5 after a little while. Kip Easley up to position number 6. Jesse Whittington, even despite the spin, he is recuperating in 7th. Brandon Banks in 8th. Dustin Reeves in 9th. Ray Rogers, your top 10. Curtis Kelly in 11th, the last car on the lead lap. Stepien off of 4 will get Barney the Flagman's discretion to go back under green flag racing. Another late start, and Forrester is turned on the outside, gets his teammate and many others involved. A huge stack up, and it is a parking lot on the front straightaway with 32 laps to go.
That was a miscue, maybe a money shift. I don't know if that's really possible or not here with the sequential gearbox, but a miscue by the 31, and it sends everybody around. I think whatever cars we had remaining without damage, with the exception of the 88 of Stepien, just got a piece.
And this is reminiscent of what happened at Dover not that long ago with Austin Shoemaker. Remember in that highlight video, we touched on his restart mishap. Well, it happens on the outside of row 1 and gets almost everyone involved. There's Colin Forster swerving out of the way, but yeah, it might have just been a misshift. Just sluggish on the start. The rear tires kicked up away from him, and the car immediately pans to the side. He's into the wall before he even knows it. Then Joe Sanchez collects Austin Reedy, then Kip Easley, and all of the other drivers also get a piece of it. Chris Shoemaker had his right side tires off the ground for a second or so. Look at this.
Well, I tell you, I saw there, and I want to back this up more to know. So we were just on board with the 31. He was going to start in first gear. You can kind of hear the RPMs. But it's second gear here for Sanchez, and I think that launch, now, it's such a short shift that you can't, I don't think that was an error on shifting. It was just an error on gear selection for the restart there.
You know, when you're looking at a track temp that has cooled down but is still at 93 degrees Fahrenheit, and you're on cold tires, yeah, once you hit the top of that rev range, those rear tires are lighting up behind you. And there's nothing that Forrester can do. Obviously, stacking up the field behind, they're gonna have no choice but to get into him. Joe Sanchez does the same, and here's the look on board from Shoemaker, who has already gone through a lot tonight, still trooping on strong. He will go for a bit of an angled slide. This car goes liftoff mode on the right side, lands back on all fours, and there's the stack up there. Look at the several Drinking Bros Racing Chevrolets. I got a piece of that. Banks and Joe Sanchez getting the pieces. Ray Rogers got his clip torn off. And more cars getting more damage as this race goes on.
It's unfortunate for Ray Rogers because he had all but missed this here, and then the one gets sent to the inside wall. Justin Henry. Yeah, I don't know, Kenneth. This seems to be one of those Darlington races where the anxiety, the anticipation, wanting it to just be over with at this point for some of these guys, because they've battled all race long, kept their cars clean, and now with less than 30 to go on this restart, they've just run out of cars to finish here.
So that makes it more than 10 cars still on the lead lap, but Ray Rogers is entering pit road. Same deal for Joe Sanchez. Dakota Curtis is on pit road as well. So they may be at mercy of being put a lap down, and the amount of cars left in this one, at least the healthy numbers, are dwindling. Here from Darlington, South Carolina, we started tonight with a 30-car field, and oftentimes we've got fields of about 40 to 42 cars, and we had a significantly less car count in this race, and I guess it may just be due to scheduling mishaps, but also just the nature of Darlington turns a lot of drivers away, and a lot of guys are just willing to skip the race if it means they'll survive another week and go on to another track where they'll have a lot more fun, or that they enjoy more to drive. But you know, this one has been tough. That's why they call it the track Too Tough to Tame. Just a quick reminder that next week on Sunday, August 25th, we will go racing under the lights at Daytona International Speedway, and we'll decide the 16 that make it to the Sunoco Cup Series playoffs. We've had a close points fight up until now, and it may get even closer at the end of this race, given everything that's happened so far. Make sure to tune in. That is, again, next Sunday, August 25th. We are not taking a week off this time, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on the VSPEED YouTube channel. Bradley and I will have all of the coverage for you at the World Center of Racing the day after the Cup Series is scheduled to go regular season racing at this famed Daytona Beach circuit. The field is out of turn 4. Pace car pivots back to the left, and Steven Stempien elects the outside lane to clear the field. Entering turn 1, Zach Wilson underneath him on the front row. Green flag back in the air at lap 265 of 293. Bit of a wiggle down low from Brandon Banks, but no harm, no foul. Jesse Whittington slides into second place in turn 1.
It's a heck of a move on that restart there for Whittington to pick up that spot. Now he's going to go on the attack into the wall for the 51. Less than 30 to go. This is the time. If you were going to try to put any pressure on Stempien, this is kind of that middle to short run that you can absolutely use up all of your stuff and try to take away this position.
And look who's entering the top 5 again. Austin Reedy, relentless as ever, attempted the inside pass on Zach Wilson, had to back out. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and counting cars single file. Hit easily back there in 5th place, but so far the advantage to Steven Stempien by several car lengths back to turn 3.
Navigating around some of these damaged cars, but you see the 4 of Shoemaker. He's 2 laps down. Has Ray Rogers. There's I believe that's the 16 of Garrett Brown. He's a lot of laps down, but he got caught up in something really early in this race, and he has one of the cleanest cars back here in this pack.
This really isn't a fight for track position at all. This is just cars on the track, all in various different places in the running order, especially with Garrett Brown, who's been on track for so long and is 24 laps down in P22. Here's Austin Reedy, the peek underneath. The wiggle from Wilson opens the door, side by side in turn 1.
This didn't work out well the last time we saw it. 1 and 2, not the place. There's more contact. It just hasn't it hasn't been a place to overtake. You can get the run. There's contact. 51's going to hold on. There's Easley in the wall.
And Wilson as well. Yellow is out again. A hard hit for Easley, and Wilson brings out the yellow cautionary flag once more at lap 269. And it's drama in the fight for the top 3. Austin Reedy making the contact, trying to make the bump and run work in turn 3. And Wilson just catching Easley down the hill and tearing up 2 more race cars. So Wilson's bad luck streak only continues. And Kip Easley, who was going around at his own pace, unfortunately tagged in as Wilson tried to keep this car collected. Look on board with Wilson entering turn 3. Reedy's going to get into him, then Wilson just trying to save it. Catches Easley up the track, and there they go.
This starts even further back. Remember, they're side by side into 1 and 2, and I already said this hasn't worked out all day long. They make heavy contact out of the exit of turn 2, and that sends Wilson up into the wall. But the second touch here by Reedy, that's what ultimately is what caused that situation right there with Easley, and see everyone kind of dodge it there. But if you're Kip Easley, you've been holding on to the lead lap all day long. You've been getting the lucky pass positions. You've been getting the wave arounds. You've fought and fought and fought. You finally find yourself into the top 5. Everybody else in this race, it seems like once it starts to feel like it turns around, the lady in black strikes again, puts you back on pit road.
That's not a Darlington stripe, it's a Darlington shunt. And for Zach Wilson, he's measuring his damage bill on pit road, seeing how long he can stay in there before his car is at least somewhat drivable again. We don't know if that was suspension damage, but it appeared as if it was. He's already 48 seconds and counting on pit road. And as the field is coming by on the front straightaway, Wilson may just indeed go a lap down, and his night may just be soured. After having a really strong car all night long, started this one in 2nd place, and you could argue if Stempien wasn't in attendance tonight, Wilson would surely be that 2nd best driver, but it seems as though it will not pan out. Wilson does fall a lap down, and now I'm even more worried about interviewing Steven Stempien under green flag or yellow flag circumstances, because I don't think it'll matter.
Well, I
think we may just give him the commentator's jinx.
I was just seeing there on the comm cams. He's ready for this one to be over. He just wants these 20 laps to go away, and I know a lot of these guys want it to be over with. It's been a frustrating day here in South Carolina.
It has, and for many of these guys, you know, they're just thankful that they're still in this one. Specifically, Jesse Whittington. You know, he escaped the bullet by going for the spin. Didn't get the worst of that accident that he was involved in. And Austin Reedy, with all that he's been through, all the damage he's picked up, he still has a functioning race car. Colin Forrester, even with that restart snafu, still a functionable car to be able to roll into the top 5. You know, Brandon Banks, you know, Dustin Reeves, Dakota Curtis, all of these rather clean race cars that are either picking up damage and repairing it or keeping it clean for the most part. These guys have their time to shine, but at the cost of many guys being taken out 1 and a lot of time spent behind the pace car number 2. Lights are off from the pace car, by the way, so we are ready to get back underway from Darlington with about 20 laps to go. Steven Stempien, of course, still the leader. No real change there, especially on the restarts. Jesse Whittington in 2nd, race high for him. Colin Forrester going to be in 3rd with his teammate Austin Reedy in 4th. They'll occupy row number 2. Brandon Banks, Dustin Reeves, 5th and 6th. 7th place, Curtis Kelly. 8th to Dakota Curtis. 9th, Joe Sanchez. 10th is Ray Rogers. Then 11th, Kip Easley, the final car on the lead lap. And even then, Easley is still exiting turn 2, trying to catch up to the field. Same deal with Charles Stevens in the number 84 Chevrolet Camaro. Can we finish the final stint under green? Still, that question needed to be answered as the intensity is ramped up, and so has the attrition in a physical Darlington outing. restart back to turn one. Stepien the advantage. Jesse Whittington and Colin Forrester in the fight.
We got a couple questions up there in the chat that are we in record territory? I'm not sure on those statistics. I'm sure Kenneth has probably glanced at that, but I think we're far from it. 10 cautions here. Stepien just wanting it to be over. 20 laps to go when they cross the stripe. He's going to try to stretch this run out.
He's been the fastest car all night long, but he's been under a little bit of fire. Remember Zach Wilson and a bit of Justin Herbal. Maybe Jesse Whittington could put up the torch to this Flashpoint Exalta Chevrolet, but out of turn two, that's a rise that we've seen typical out of Stepien, getting away from the outside wall, not getting off the throttle and cracking it, so he's being able to put in way more throttle than everyone else, uses the middle and the arc down low, staying ahead of Whittington, the onboard look as he stays ahead of Colin Forrester, the field mostly single file. Our first side-by-side action is for P6, Dustin Reeves and Dakota Curtis going at it.
Oh, into the wall here for Whittington as we're riding on board. You can see he's getting a little frustrated there. He had the run. He probably felt like he had some ground to make up, but Stepien with the dirty air putting on the nose of the 94. It's got to be frustrating because you can see the line that he's running, but you can't duplicate it because there's no aero push on the front tires to make him bite.
And when you're right behind Stepien, you're only going to get the maximized effects of the dirty air, so that right front is going to start screaming. You're going to end up in that outside wall whether you like it or not. Fast Banana may go side by side here, potentially 3 wide with Brandon Banks. The 4 car will stay out of the lane. Reedy, though, back down low on his teammate this time. Forrester, this fight for third, not over. Banks the run off the corner. He won't be able to get there. Reedy with a bit of contact
teammates.
to that 31.
Come on, teammates. Cut him a break, but man, that was close. He bounced off the wall out of 4. Forrester just trying to hold on here to the 4th spot, but you know Reedy wants by him.
You're playing a dangerous game, though, if you're working the inside. And like we were talking about earlier, not making your passes on the straightaways. If you're darting for the corners, you may have a really rough time or a completely beat-up race car with how rough it's been to make passes over the course of the race, specifically in 1 and 2, which is what Brandon Banks is attempting to do. But he'll slow up, crack the throttle, get out of harm's way, stay behind Reedy and try one more time. There's Ray Rogers, Dustin Reeves. Rogers with a better off race car now. He's repaired it quite a bit. Curtis Kelly down low, and that's for 9th place. Easy done.
Yeah, there's a lot of brush with the wall there by Dustin Reeves. Still potential for a top 10 day. He's got to go all the way back to Alex Huffman. Remember, Huffman picked up a lot of damage there at one point in this race. He's still got a lot of it. He's lap down, so Reeves pretty secure here for a top 10 day. I think right now it's going to be the Steve Stepien show. If we can run this out to the very end. He has got about 3/10, and it's continuing to grow this time by.
And if you imagine it, Bradley, is this Stepien not just letting the competition get closer to him, but it's more so him being more patient with this race car? Is that the situation for Stepien now that he knows with how dwindled this field looks at this point of the race with 13 laps to go, that he's just playing it calm, knowing he's the fastest car?
Yeah, he's got to be pretty calm. He's been pretty collected all race long, and even with the change-ups with the strategies, and he's been on point with coming down pit road and getting those 4 tires when, you know, very easily the rest of the field behind him could have came down pit road and out-strategized him. So he's made the right calls. He's made every single attempt here to keep the lead, and what it shows on the lap counter, 281 laps, he's led 258 of them. And I would say the rest of those laps, the majority of them are going to go to the 48 of Muscarella, who stayed out there longer than anyone else today, 84 laps on his stint. So, yeah, it's just a dominant performance, and I think he's got complete faith in how he's driving his line, what he's doing around this place all day long. And clean air, man. It's hard to go wrong here at Darlington.
Well, this race isn't over yet. Whittington did pick up some time there and clocked in a faster lap than Stepien did that last time by, almost by a full 10th. So Whittington is still there, although You'll have to back out there in 3 and 4. Picked up all that dirty air, and the turbulence pushed him up the hill. So he'll have to try again, but Stempien surely isn't guaranteed the race win. At least not yet.
Not over until it's over, but it just looks like that dirty air is so bad here today that this car just cannot get up to the back bumper. Everybody that's gotten caught up to Stempien or rode within, a tenth or two has had exactly that. Wall ride out of the corner. We're even seeing it with guys that are in cleaner. Colin Forster just bounced off the wall out of turn 4, but he has enough of a gap here that he can definitely lock up the top 3. Good to go now.
Well, they're going all over the place behind him. There's Reedy swapping down low, getting underneath Brandon Banks. This fight continues for 4th place, still ongoing. Reedy this time, no contact, makes his way through. Banks will try the crossover though. At the bottom, make a bit of contact with the rear end of the Camry. And he won't be able to get down low before turn 1, but this is a fight worth noting for it. Even behind them, Joe Sanchez, Dakota Curtis, but they could still put their dogs in this fight.
Again, back to guys that stayed into this race, got their damage repaired, fought all day long. Dakota Curtis is at the top of that list, sitting in 6th spot, looking for 5th as he dives to the inside in 3 and 4. Banks almost sideways.
This is not the Eminem and J.I.D. song, but looks like these guys still have a lot of fuel left in their stomachs to keep going for these positions. It is now about 6 cars stacked up from Forster on back, and here's Forster in the wall. Down low is Reedy. Banks will help Forster and keep it side by side in turn 3.
Pressure from a teammate there, and it looks like it probably cost 3 spots, as now you have Banks on the inside. You've got the 55 of Sanchez, who peeked in there for just a moment. Backs up the corner on the entry of 1 and 2. I think that was wise because it probably would have ended up 3 wide with that checkup. Forster in the wall again.
And Sanchez was smelling blood in the water. He knew there was going to be a crash if he stayed side by side with Dakota Curtis. So a smart decision to back out at that moment, especially in the high momentum turn 1. Forster on the fall off. Sanchez weaves his way under, and Dakota Curtis, who we haven't talked about through most of this race, started 23rd, and look at how it's all panned out. For being one of the cleaner cars on the racetrack and staying alive, Dakota Curtis will be rewarded with his best finish of the season with about 5 laps to go.
It's a Baja Blast moment right there.
Yeah.
We'll just call the biggest mover the Baja Blast. I think that's what we're going to go with here on VSPEED. 18 positions gained. He's not quite the biggest mover, but if he goes up there and snags 3 more spots, he will be.
Well, it won't be his best finish of the season. That was 4th at Talladega, but it will be his best finish on a non-super speedway track. And for Curtis, that will surely mean a lot, given everything that's happened at Darlington. But at the cross of the stripe, it will be 4 laps to go for this man right here. Steven Stempien continuing to lead laps and now putting on the afterburners. Now 1.2 seconds ahead of Whittington.
I think Jesse Whittington is just at this point, he's like, I got a gap between the leader and 3rd place. I'm going to ride this thing out. No reason to go up there and push yourself too hard, end up making a mistake and losing a spot. So with this gap of 2 seconds either way, I probably would do the same thing. Let's bring it home on the podium. You've had an up and down night. You've been a part of some things that weren't your fault. And you can say a lot for anybody that's up here in this top 5 with the exception of Steve Stempien. He's been able to avoid a lot of this, but everybody from probably 2nd on back has been a part of something today, and Darlington has not been kind to the majority of this field.
But they've all survived. That's the common thread. They're all here right now, and that's what matters. And this will be a big W for Whittington, even if he doesn't have the checkered flag in hand. Remember our conversation at the start of this race, how close he was to being bumped out of playoff contention in that 10-point swing with Richard Swavely, Kip Easley, and Chris Shoemaker. They are nowhere to be found. They have been part of the attrition list here at Darlington. So for Whittington, 2nd place, maybe last year, could not cut it with a winning car. But this year, knowing how dominant Stempien has been and how Whittington has been fighting to keep himself alive in playoff territory, this will mean a lot. Off of turn 4, Barney the flagman displays the white flag. One more to go from Darlington, South Carolina. And the first man since Lawson Peel to go 2 in a row will do it right here as long as he can continue this half lap. Another dominant performance by the Massachusetts driver who will take one last trip through turns 3 and 4. This track is tamed by Steven Stepien, winner for the 3rd time this season and first at Darlington in 2024.
On that, though, for Austin Reedy to come back and get a top 3. Remember, he was kind of broken and getting that damage repaired. We saw him on pit road, fell all the way back into lap traffic. Jesse Whittington, who he picked up some damage there in earlier portions of this race, races his way back to a podium. And Brandon Banks, who also got caught up in some late race cautions. There's just so many guys back here. The storybook for Stepien is going to be, oh, it was a great race, it was clean, but every one of these guys back here was scrapping just for one spot at the very end of this race.
Call it Survivor, call it what you will. They made it to the checkered flag. They made it on scheduled distance. And after 293 laps, Steven Stepien, for the 2nd time in a row and 3rd time this season, brings you tonight's Sunoco winning moment. More high-performance engines rely on Sunoco race fuels than all others combined, and for over 50 years, Sunoco has been powering the top drivers around the world with high-quality fuels they can trust to power them to the checkered flag. Sunoco, fueling victories from track to tank. Stepien enjoys this well-deserved victory. A clinic on the rest of the field. We'll take a breather and get our thoughts sorted before we bring in our post-race coverage from Darlington Raceway. Don't go anywhere. We've got the coverage on the other side here for race 12 of the Sunoco Cup Series live on VSPEED.
What got into you? At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
Fuller,
Yeah,
needed F-150 for Smith build.
got it.
Yesterday.
I know.
Don't forget my BMW.
Gotcha. Check this out. All the major online automotive sites in one place. BMW, done. F-150, done.
How's he do it?
I can search nationwide. Even those classified sites. Auto Tempest, all the cars, one search. That's how I do it.
What got into you?
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
Back at Darlington Raceway, 293 laps complete, and for the second time in a row, Steven Stempien will visit Sunoco Victory Lane, grabs his third win of the 2024 season. Right behind him, Jesse Whittington in the number 94, who desperately needed points to get out of harm's way at the playoff bubble. He will surely be confirmed as a playoff contender come next week at Daytona. Austin Reedy closes out the top three. Brandon Banks, Joe Sanchez, 4th and 5th. Dakota Curtis with one of his best finishes of the year ends up in P6. Mind you, a lot of these guys just surviving the mayhem over the course of this race. Ray Rogers in the same boat, 7th place for him. Colin Forrester in 8th. And then behind them, Justin Reeves in 9th place, and Curtis Kelly surviving in the Martin Truex Jr. throwback for the top 10.
Continuing the survival, it's Alex Huffman. He's going to be scored as 1 lap down. Chris Shoemaker with what looked like almost a modified out there, an open wheel car. He'll get 12th spot. Shane Wyatt, the rookie who had a top 3 day, just didn't quite get the finish he deserved with the damage and get caught up in some things. He's going to finish 13th. Aaron Adcock, back and forth all day long. Got the damage repaired. Left some bumpers on the racetrack. He'll get 14th. Charles Stevens. Well, I tell you what, Charles Stevens, for all the things that went on, he's going to get 15th, and that car was pretty clean, to say the least. 84 into the top 15. Then it's Alex Muscarella, who showed you could go 84, 87 laps actually around this place. Kip Easley, well, he got back on the lead lap. He got turned there in 3 and 4. He's going to finish 17th. Justin Erb, big damage after getting into the side of Alex Muscarella. He'll round out 18th position. Zach Wilson, commentator's curse in the 51. He'll go 19th. And Garrett Brown rounding out the top 20.
Back in 21st, you will find the one car of Justin Hendry, 27 laps down. Casey Knighton in 22nd place. Justin Winters in the Scott Bloomquist throwback is 23rd. Sean Kalis in the SK Sim Racing Chevrolet is 24th. 25th will go to Bill Schoonover. Logan Sturgeon in the Terry Labonte colors ends up 26th on the racetrack at race end. Chris Progar is 27th. Richard Swavely needed some points to get over that cut line. He'll have a lot of work cut out for him at Daytona next Sunday. He is 28th at the end of this one. Chuck Feltz in 29th. And rounding out the 30-car field is the number 30 machine of Wyatt Brackett. A ton of drivers taken out in this one, unfortunately. A ton of attrition, but overall, we got a race that ended under green and a race that ends with Steven Stempien at the top of the podium. And for the third time in 2024, we get to bring him into Sunoco Victory Lane. Steven, we know that these abrasive tracks and unique ones are ones that call to your soul as a sim racing driver. Dover, we saw just how much of a clinic you could put on the field, but I think this one tops it tenfold. What is this race like for you, and what was this win like to accomplish in this fashion?
Man, that was a long race. I'm sweating. That was, this place, you don't have to really worry about anybody else. You have to worry about yourself. You'll kill yourself if you make a mistake. That's why they call it Lady in Black. Too tough to tame or whatever the hell it is. But man, I'd have to say this is better than Dover because it's Darlington, but these tracks I just have an itch for, and honestly, there's a lot of great drivers out there. I don't think anybody could touch me on this track or Dover. If everything plays out pretty well. So there's a lot of good guys out here, but if I'm locked in and those two tracks are mine, Nashville, and I should have won in Nashville. I screwed myself there, and then Gateway. Those types of tracks just get me, and then my home track, Loudon. I don't know, just something about those tracks. I win at other tracks too. Okay.
But they seem to be your
tracks.
specialty. They seem to be in your wheelhouse. And, you talked to me after the Dover win, and you told me I had a chip on my shoulder going into this race. You had that date circled. I can imagine what it may feel like to go back to Darlington, especially after last season where you started that race on the pole. You led a good amount of laps, 41 of them, and You came home in 15th just based with everything that happened in that race 1 year ago. Does this feel more like redemption versus Dover, or does it feel just as sweet, given the fact that you're basically running in stride right now with these two tracks?
Yeah, I wouldn't be lying if I didn't go back and watch that race last year when me and Ross got into it for a little, extra motivation going into this week, because I definitely, I didn't realize I had 20 laps to go and I was the freshest tires in that race. But what can you do? I mean, I'm thrilled. This is, how many laps did I lead? I don't even know.
271.
271. All right, so better than last week at Dover, I think. No, Dover was 270. I don't even know, but it was great, man. I'm happy. Smiles on my face. I'm feeling good. The leg's feeling good. I mean, everything's going at the right time right now. Momentum going into the playoffs. I'm really trying to get that monkey off my back. That's the next one, is finally getting a championship in a league, because that has evaded me my whole sim racing career. I haven't won a ship yet. Came close last year here, but that's the big chip right there, and just trying to get as many points as I can. And I know I miss a lot of stage points and stage wins with the injury, so I'm just trying to recoup them right now. I can finally say I swept something. Pole 2 stages and I won. I haven't done that. I usually get screwed on one stage, but man, it feels good. I mean, I'm sorry for the viewers out there. That was probably the most boringest race, watching me just, out there running by myself for most of it. But, Zach Wilson, shout out to him. He put on a good show with me. He definitely, had a fast car. I thought he was going to be one to beat here at the end. And then, Jesse, came out of nowhere in second place and started running me hard and made me, step my game up. If it wasn't for Zach running me so hard towards the end of that race, I don't think I would have had anything for Jesse, because that kind of just, I realized I could actually run a little bit harder than I'm used to and still save tires and gap when I needed to gap. So that felt good.
You were put to the test a little, but surely less than several weeks ago at Dover. And even with all that time off, now you're like Jay-Z, on to the next one. You're looking for that championship this time around. On to the next one. Going to playoff time. I'm sure the confidence is at an all-time high, and you visit Daytona next Sunday. We don't have a week off like we usually do. We're going back-to-back weeks racing here in the Sunoco Cup Series. And Daytona favored you earlier in the season. It took a lot and green-white checkered attempts to get you there, but you won that race nonetheless. What do you think now going into the final regular season outing, kind of understanding your place in the playoffs this season, but just still trying to go guns blazing?
Yeah, just go in there, have fun. It's Daytona, try to help one of my teammates to get a win. I'd love to see Dakota finally get a win before this league shuts down. Been something that's been evading him, so I'm definitely going to try my hardest to push him to a win, and see if I can get him locked into the playoffs, or any of my other teammates. We've been kind of up and down DTH this season, where Ross has missed a couple of races. He's got some stuff going on. He just got married, so he's doing all that, but we just haven't had full field. So hopefully come Daytona we're full field and we can do what we usually do on plate racing. I feel pretty good about that, and just try to get one of our teammates that's on the outside looking in locked in. That's the game plan for next week, and then just relax next week and get ready for what's the first race of the playoffs.
It'll be Atlanta Motor Speedway.
Atlanta. So Speedway and then Michigan, right?
Yeah, Atlanta, Richmond, Watkins Glen, Michigan, Dega, Vegas, and then Homestead.
So we got some good tracks. I'm looking forward to it. You guys, it's sad to this, Sunoco's going away, but I'm trying to put on a goddamn good show going out here.
Trying to end it on a high note for sure. Steven, before we let you go on this third win of the 2024 campaign, anybody in particular you want to thank or give the shout outs to?
Oh, you guys, obviously, for the amazing job that you guys do on the broadcast. Shout out to Bradley being back, a smile on my face, capturing for the win this week. And then, my beautiful wife for allowing me to do this. It's not easy putting 2 kids to bed, but she allowed me to do this so I could race tonight. So shout out to her. I love her. and my pops out there always supporting, and then my teammates at DTH dropping the hammer, and my guys at Cat 5 Esports out there. Love those guys, and see you guys in a week. I'm excited about the quick turnaround. Very excited, man. I'm looking forward to getting back into it.
Us too. We usually miss having you guys racing. You know that we have some weeks off, but finally we're going to be back next week. It'll be exciting, and we're excited to see you there, Steven. Looking for your 3rd win in a row, if that can happen at this juncture of the campaign. We always appreciate the time, Steven. We'll see what happens, but until then, congratulations on tonight's dominant victory from Darlington. We'll see you at Daytona to close out the regular season.
I appreciate it, guys. Maybe we'll do a podcast for back-to-back wins tomorrow night. We'll see.
We should. People have been claiming that Dropping the Hammer podcast has been dead, so I got to see
we
it
need to get back to it. We're going to revive it. We're going to give it the little electric shock and get that thing going again. But you guys take care. Have a great week. We'll see you in Daytona.
Steven Stempian in high spirits. 3rd win of the 2024 season, and it comes right here at the virtual Darlington Raceway. Another track that we know Stempian is so good at, but we didn't expect the dominant performance, but he surely showed us all how it is all done. 2nd place goes to the driver of the 94, Jesse Whittington, and for the point's sake, Bradley Cooper, this is a big-time W.
Absolutely is. And Jesse, I know that your frustration started to sink in. I saw you on the camera there where you were following the line of Stempian. How frustrating was it to just, you see the line he's running, you try to duplicate it, but that dirty air just kept pushing your car up the track?
I'll be completely honest. This year, this 2nd place is a lot easier to swallow than it was last season. But no,
absolutely. I've heard about that one.
That was a rough one. This one is a lot easier to swallow, and but I mean, at the end of the day, the only chance that I really had was to try to make a move on him early in the run and focus on clean air. I feel like me and him could match pace. I just never had the track position to be able to prove anything. And once I finally got it, I was, hung on his bumper, but that dirty air just kills you. It just makes the fronts just chatter and slide. And whenever I saw that we were up to about a 3-second lead, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to settle in, not make any mistakes, and just settle in 2nd, get a really good points day, and hope that it's a good thing for my playoff chances this season.
Well, real quick, I want you to flex that papyrus shirt you're wearing there. That is absolutely an awesome relic that you got on right now. So there's that. We were checking that out in the broadcast. You started back in 22nd position tonight, Jesse. Talk about, through the field and then maybe through the stages, that last stage being one of the toughest with attrition and damage and just getting caught up in things.
Man, I was telling my teammates at the end of the race that was probably the most mentally exhausting race that I've ever done on iRacing. I had a really bad qualifying run. I got really loose coming off of turn 2, and from there it was just it was a recovery drive from the drop of the green. But that last stage, I think I was running right behind Colin, and I went to go, just try to make it past Shane, and I guess, I don't know if I slowed up a little too much or if Ray kind of overdrove a little bit, got into me, and I thought my race was done right there. And then we had that restart wreck, and whenever Stimpy said that he was going to choose the high side, I was like, okay, I have to get the best restart of my life. And so whenever I heard Zach kind of spin his tires a little bit, it sounded like he was in first gear and just spun them. I was able to get that jump and stay on Stimpy's bumper, and from there it was just trying to do what I could to control my own destiny, and hey, it worked out. I'll take P2.
Used every ounce of the Focus fuel here tonight. Put it out there on the racetrack. Excellent job, Jesse. And before we let you go, anybody you'd like to shout out for this podium in second?
Oh, absolutely. My first and foremost, my wife, my kids, they always They always support me. I mean, my wife even came out here and talked with me for a little bit, and I think during stage 2, and yeah, I can't thank their support and love enough. Focus Fuel, of course, we got them as a primary sponsor. The new colors tonight with the black and red. I really enjoy these colors and glad to bring it into Sunoco. Looks like it kind of changed our luck around, at least for one race. Burt's Beat, of course, for setting me up with them. Lishan Brewing Company out of Denham Springs. They got some really good brewskis that they make in-house. Luke Haley Music, Full Lock Racing. My teammates always push me to my very best. And, of course, you guys over at VSPEED. I can't thank y'all enough for everything y'all do. And I'm just ready to go watch this replay, see how everything kind of unfolded from what I couldn't see. So thank y'all for everything. And, of course, Sunoco for putting this on every week.
You don't have to review it like you did the last one. I can assure you of that. That last one, I heard the stories about it, and I'm glad that this one is better for you. Outside of that, thank you. It really is Kenneth that makes the show. I just push the buttons, so we thank you for the high praise on that. And
hey, it takes a team.
Hey, yes, it does. I tell you what, man, it takes a lot, but you guys put on a good show for us every single week, and I'm looking forward to Daytona at the end of that regular season. So maybe you'll get that victory lane next week.
I'm hoping so. That would be best case scenario.
Jesse Whittington, second place here tonight, and what he described as the most mentally exhausting race of the season. And finally, that brings us, well, maybe not finally. We have quite a few people that are in line here, but it's Austin Reedy on the recovery, and I think Kenneth Bueno is caught up with him.
Talk about another relentless drive for Austin Reedy. Austin, at the end of this race, given everything that went down behind the wheel for you, did you ever stop and take a moment to be like, wow, I just went through all that? Because it felt like that's the overall sentiment over this race, is just a sigh of relief that it's all over and that a bulk of drivers survived.
Yeah, I don't know. Just glad it's over. There was so much that went wrong that race, and so many people yelling at me. So, well, we'll take the third, but it sucks because I feel like we had a fast car and we missed qualifying. And, when we got up there, I had that one shot to pass Stympian when we came out from the first pit cycle, and I think it was in stage 2 maybe, and I think we net coded, and I immediately got 2.5 minutes of damage. So the car was pretty trash from there on out. We can never get the steering rack right or the toe right, but it was a good night in and out.
And talk about the way you had to work your way through the field. It seemed like each time with a different challenge. It was you and Stympian getting into contact. You hit the outside wall in turn 1. Then you go down pit road to repair that car. You go back out on track, and then you get nose damage from a crash that happens right in front of you, out of your control. You have to come down and get even more damage repair and to dig your way through the field each and every single time. Was there anything that you kept in mind, either between yourself or your teammates, mentally, to keep your head in the game and make sure that you didn't fully give up and rewarding in this third place finish?
Just not to burn the right front off, really. I mean, everything was trying to keep cool, because you're not racing the drivers, you're racing the track here, and you just couldn't keep that car farther off the wall. It just seemed like anytime you touched the wall, you had damage. So main goal was just to keep it low and just try to focus and not race the other cars. But we ended up getting collected a few times, and even wrecking Zach going into 3. I think it's kind of my fault. It looked like it was more of a racing incident. Like I was trying to come up to set up my corner, and he was kind of going down to go into the corner. But yeah, it was a tough race. It's just one of them races to where it's just a battle the whole way. But somehow we ended up P3. The car was destroyed. I had basically no steering coming out of the corners. It was like a dead zone. But we figured it out somehow.
Other than 3 of your starts in this 2024 season, you finished every single race inside the top 10, and tonight adding to another podium along with some points along the way. What does that mean momentum-wise as you push forward to the playoffs? We know that there's still one race left, and we know that that is certainly a race that you can go out and win, much like a lot of the others on the calendar year. But what do you think now in that playoff mindset as you clock off Daytona and then you move onwards to Atlanta and kick off the final Sunoco Cup Series playoff run?
I like Daytona. It's a little wild card. We're always good at the super speedways, especially when we can link up with some certain guys. But I like points racing, so we're gonna go out there and try to get stage points and try to secure this regular season championship. And then I guess after that we'll focus more on this playoff run. We haven't gotten that dreaded win yet, so still looking for that. But there's good. Those first 3 tracks are good for us, probably except for Atlanta. It's a toss up, but you know, if you can't get the win, we have basically the most bonus points scored this year. We're leading going into Daytona by it was 49 coming into Darlington. I think it's probably around 60 now. So we're good at points racing, but I think as long as we can keep the car clean, which we've done all year, I think we finished every single race almost. So we get a good shot to move through these rounds to get that championship 4 again.
Well, it's looking like a good run to the playoffs for now. 3rd place here from Darlington Raceway. Austin, before we let you go on this grueling night here in South Carolina, virtually anybody you want to thank or shout out to before we let you bounce?
Yeah, everybody back at MRMS and Fast Banana Racing, and PJ's team for the sponsor, and Teamer Design for the paints every week. Do a great job. Also, you guys, Kenneth, I know you do an awesome job doing this, and can't wait to race next week.
Well, got to give the credit to Bradley, too, for putting this amazing show together. Austin, of course, as always, we appreciate the time. Congratulations on the podium here from Darlington. I'm sure you're going to try and rest as much as you can like everyone else. It was a really long one tonight, but we go racing at Daytona next Sunday. We're excited to see you there.
Man, I'll see you too.
So that is Austin Reedy closing out the top 3 here from the virtual Darlington Raceway, and this was a long one. We were talking about it under the break before the post-race coverage, Bradley, that this was pretty exhausting in a little way, but for the driver base, it was a grueling one to get through. You're not only going through a lengthy race here at Darlington, but with everything that transpired, all of the cautions, all of the mayhem, we still had a finishing field, but the common thread, Steven Stepien once again on top in a clinic of a race win this time around. He's probably the hottest driver going into the Sunoco playoffs, if it's not Lawson Peel right now.
Oh, for sure. And pre-race, we were talking about how we expected this race to go, and it looked like that first stage was going to be kind of in what we both agreed upon. And then the second stage came around. There were some strategy calls, some guys trying to adapt and overcome. And ultimately, what happens when you start changing the way that you were going to race this track? Well, it jumps back and bites you. And that's probably what happened there in the third stage. Is a lot of people went in further than what this track is capable of, and they just overdrove their stuff a little bit, and attrition followed suit. It was... if it was exhausting for us, Kenneth, imagine how these drivers feel at this point.
Long race physically and mentally, but rewarding for Steven Stepien, who gets the win. Even rewarding for Jesse Whittington, keeping his playoff hopes alive with this performance. Austin Reedy, despite everything that he faced over the course of the evening, still being able to rally and get a top 3. Plenty of storylines. Dakota Curtis getting into a top 10 position at the end of that race. Drinking Bros Racing getting 2 drivers in there with Banks and Sanchez in the absence of Lawson Peel, their star driver. I'm sure that means a lot for all of them getting out of this race, but the challenges will grow even further at Daytona International Speedway. That'll be our next challenge, August 25th, Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. That'll have the coverage right here on the youtube.com/VSPEED channel. You'll get all the coverage of the regular season finale as we whittle down those 16 drivers that will make it to Sunoco Cup Series post-season action. Again, we start at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on the VSPEED YouTube channel. We go live from the virtual World Center of Racing. So that'll do it on our coverage tonight from the track. Too tough to tame after 293 long laps. Steven Stepien getting his 2nd win in a row, 3rd on the 2024 season, and And who knows what momentum is still left to grab come playoff time and when we decide the regular season at Daytona. For Dakota Curtis and the entire admin team at the Sunoco Cup Series for all of their hard work, for Adam Baker and everyone at VSPEED for making this all possible, and for our crew on the broadcast tonight, for my producer and colleague in the booth, Bradley Cooper, I'm Kenneth Bueno saying so long from the Lady in Black Daytona, up next to close the regular season.